Live. So we got an epic debate for you today. So we got the Knight and the Bishop debating Michael Sartain. Michael, is this the first time you ever done debate, or have you done these in the past?
So I was a debate champion in high school and in college. So no, I do debates all the time, but on YouTube, not really. I think the one with Ruslan on Purple Pill was supposed to be a debate, but he kind of like agreed with almost everything I had to say. So, this is not the first time. No.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of hoping this would be like your first time, so I could mark this Michael Sartain virginity. But okay, so this is gonna be a fun discussion. We're gonna primarily focus around the concept of social circle game, but it's not limited to that. If any other disagreements arise, then we can get into that. My role is going to be the moderator, so I'm not going to be doing much talking. I'm just going to be making sure that there's not massive amounts of interruptions and that things more or less stay on point. But largely, guys, I will not be talking much. I think we should start off with a very quick introduction for anyone who's not familiar with you. So let's just go in clockwise order. Let's start with you, Michael. So just give a quick introduction about who you are and what you do.
My name is Michael Sartain. I'm a former U.S. Air Force captain. I run this program called the Men of Action Mentoring Program, where we teach social networking, high status networking, entrepreneurship, leadership, mindset, evolutionary psychology, event planning, critical thinking, and several other topics. But we basically we treat networking as it's an evolutionary adaptation. The entire course is based on the works of Dr. David Buss, Cindy Meston. It's based on the works of Leah Cosmides and Gad Saad and people like that. So it's an evolutionary psychology, an evidence-based program based on how to use networking in order to level up your dating life or your work life, to become a better real estate agent, to become better on social media, to date the woman of your dreams, all those kind of things. But we teach it as we are pre-Pleistocene Homo sapiens living 50,000 years ago. What are the adaptations that we learned or that were passed down to us through our genetics that caused us to be able to do those things? And the reality of the situation, I have 600 clients right now. We don't have any bad reviews. These guys love the program. We're growing pretty rapidly. And I host all of the bikini competitions here in Las Vegas. I host the two biggest bikini competitions in the world, one in Mexico, and then I host one in Jamaica. And then I also host all of the Maxim parties. I'm hosting Maxim Carnival tomorrow night. And then I also host the Babes in Toyland charities, which is where we use a bunch of influencers to raise money for different charities.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys want to see more detail about what Michael does, then check out the podcast we did about a year ago. It's on this channel. So just type in PWF Michael Sartain. You'll see it. All right, Knight, let's go to you next. So just give a quick introduction.
All right. Sounds good. So I graduated from Texas A&M. And after I got out of college, I worked for a Fortune 500 company, Quanta Services. After that, I worked for a Big Four accounting firm. So I was a consultant for KPMG. Consulted for oil and gas construction projects. So I have a bachelor's degree in architecture. So here's the thing. When I got out of college, before social media became a real big thing, guys like myself, we didn't have much of a choice. We had to start cold approaching. Or, well, Michael, he talks more so about the social circle. But I got into cold approaching beginning in Houston, right? So I developed my skills over a long period of time, and that's just kind of what I fell into. So probably about a decade ago, I kind of fell into the manosphere in different blogs, returningkings.com, different Reddit forums, and all these different places. I wasn't going to these places for information because I already had the information. So it was more so like I stumbled upon it, and okay, I confirmed or didn't confirm the stuff that I already thought to be true. So yeah, that's why I appreciate the debate opportunity, and I guess let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you guys also watch until the very end, because Michael is going to ask me some questions about Rolo at the very end. So you guys don't want to miss that. So make sure you don't click away. All right, Knight. So I'm going to kick it off to you first. What are your disagreements with social circle games? So you mentioned that you have some strong disagreements. So let's just start outlining them, and then you guys can get into it.
All right. So the major one that I have is, I would argue, the vast majority of men in the world, they cannot determine if a woman is actually sexually attracted to them. So when you have a big social circle and a woman already knows everything about you, that makes the job a lot more difficult for those men, unless they know what they're talking about, unless they have a bunch of experience, unless, quite honestly and quite frankly, they have a bunch of intelligence. A lot of these different type of men are going to get punked. That's a big issue I have with that, right? So under the social circle concept, these men are already going into this group where the women know a bunch of stuff about the guys. Oh, this guy, he has a law degree, he has a medical degree, he went to A&M, he's a director at KPMG. And then now the guy has to sit there and determine the women's motivations for dealing with them. That's a big issue.
Okay, let's let Michael respond to that.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. So if the guy actually understood how to set boundaries, his social circle would not be a problem for him. Like he actually was able to suss these things out, because it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like a huge difficulty. If I'm around 100 playmates every week and I just know, hey, I'm not going to let this girl take advantage of me, and I set just very simple boundaries, it seems like an unbelievably advantageous situation to be around 100 playmates every week. Is that the problem? Is being around all the women the problem? I'm confused.
I think once he chooses one of those women, there's a problem with that as well. I think you would agree. Well, maybe you wouldn't agree, but in terms of social circle, depending on the group of women, it isn't like a gentleman can sit there and hit on and flirt with and go on dates with 7 women.
He doesn't have to. They usually hit on him.
Okay, but the guy still has to understand the different concept of body language and the different reasons why
they're usually going to grab his penis. It's not really like that. Like I was going to show you before. Like if you have that level of pre-selection, women start competing for you. There's always a small example would be the high school quarterback. A large example would be Dan Bilzerian. When you have a lot of women around you, there's no like misinterpretation. Like usually when I'll have a party, I'll have women straight up tell me, hey, I want to take you home with me. It's not really, there isn't a lot of like miscommunication about body language. The other issue is, I used to manage a strip club for a while, and I'm very, 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 very aware of when women's giving false signs of attraction. I'm an expert at it because, like I said, I managed a strip club for 4 years before I joined the military. One of the situations is being around women. Again, I want to get better at throwing a football. I throw a football. I want to get better at coding. I code more. If I want to get better at being able to suss out whether or not a woman has true intent and genuine desire for me, the trick would be to be around more women. There is no way to be around more women, provably, irrevocably, absolutely, there's no argument on this, than social circle. Social circle puts you around more women quicker and more attractive women on a more frequent basis than any or other form of game. Remember, guys, I don't teach a dating program, but I'm just using this terminology. Any other form of game, there's no way to do it more than social circle. That immerses you in being around super attractive women so that you don't have the autonomic responses of pupils dilating, sweaty palms, the change in the voice, the change of behavior because attractive women around. I treat attractive women exactly like I treat the guys I served with in the U.S. military because I'm around attractive women every day. And so I think the immersion aspect of that allows you to set boundaries, and then you don't have the problem that you're stating.
Okay, so this is what I would say to the audience out there. Y'all notice how he brought it back to himself rather than the people that he would be coaching.
So let's do that. Hey, can we bring up the people that I'm coaching? Go ahead. And Alex, can you go ahead and pull up the screen there? Let's bring up the people that I'm coaching.
He didn't let me finish my statement. I spoke.
Okay, go ahead.
See, here's the thing. I'm the expert in code approach. He's the expert in social circle.
So you're not. So I was actually cold approach, an approach coach for Mystery back in 2009, 2010. I was an approach coach, and I actually worked with RSD way before you were ever involved in any of this. So you're not the expert compared to me in cold approach.
You got to compare and contrast the two things and why you would feel comfortable shifting towards social circle. So
because it's 100 times more efficient to do social circle than cold approach.
See, the thing is, I can break apart this. So here's the problem with social circle. Austin Holloman's a perfect example. The problem is social circle, you can't really take that to countries that are developing. There's no high status people. There's no rich people. So if you're to try to teach this to people in Central America.
Shout out to all the guys in Colombia. No, I have a ton of clients that are in Central America and Colombia. Look, listen, Knight brother, you probably should have done a little bit more research and like looked at some of my clients and my testimonials. I have several clients in Medellin right now. This is no problem with this whatsoever. It actually works better there.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about the testimonials because that could be fake. I'm talking about.
They could be fake. Well, you know what can't be fake? Can we pull up the screenshots? Let's pull up the screenshots right now. So let's take a look at what we're talking about here. So what you're saying is that this isn't real. Like these things aren't happening. So this is my client. This is not me. This is my client in Scottsdale, okay? This is my client also in Scottsdale. This is the same guy, okay? This is another client for those of you like the short Asian guy. Oh, this won't work for him. This is him. This is another of my clients in Boston. This is the same thing over here, the guy in Boston. This is one of my clients in Austin, Texas. By the way, just FYI, I'm a Longhorn. This is one of my clients in Austin, Texas. This is another one of my clients in New York. This is another one of my clients in Budapest, Hungary, in one of those developing countries that you're working for. Here's another one of my clients. He is in Singapore. This is another one that he starts having these after parties at his place over here in Singapore. That's Mr. Tom Anderson, who is like taking over the fucking world right there. Tom Anderson. This is another one of my clients who's in Harlem. Here's another one of my clients right here. This is a photo shoot he did in Los Angeles. Another one, the same client right here. He's in Los Angeles with me. He's in Orange County, and this is him out at a shooting range. There's another one of my clients out here in Newport Beach. No, it's the same guy. It's Sky Rigdon. Here's one of my clients here in Las Vegas. He's actually a student at Harvard. Here's another, is the same client here. So the idea that this is going to work in some places and it's not going to work in other places is just strictly not true. It will work in all of these different places and all these different scenarios. Like, for instance, here in Krakow, Poland with these girls, and right here in France, in Cannes with these girls, and right here with these girls in Indonesia. It works in all of these places and we can go all day, by the way. I have like hundreds of these photos of my clients. Here's another one of my clients here who's from India, but he lives in Singapore, and another one of my clients here who is a little bit vertically challenged, but he is constantly
a shorter version of Tucker Max.
Constantly surrounded by beautiful women, constantly, because he replicated the things that I taught him in Social Circle, constantly surrounded by beautiful women, constantly surrounded by beautiful women. And then this is another one of my clients in Miami, because this works in that place too. And it doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter where you're from. This works in every instance, in every case. And what I think I have more exposure to cold approach, and I don't think you have as much exposure to Social Circle to truly understand what you can get out of this if you just take the time to do it. This was, by the way, this is me last week at the Super Bowl.
Let's let Knight and Bishop respond to all that, because you made a few points.
All right. So on a short-term basis, Social Circle will do semi-well. Okay. If you want to flash a little bit of stats, a little bit of money, okay, you might.
So no money. Hold on, time out. Let's make sure we absolutely understand this. Absolutely, under no circumstances does anyone in my program use money to get girls. Period. That is absolutely, unequivocally, none of those girls were ever paid to be there. I put this up. I'll continue this up for the rest of my career. I will put $10,000 to anyone who can find one single girl that was ever paid to be in any one of my commercials, any one of my videos, or any one of my photos ever for any reason, period. If they were paid $1, I will give you $10,000. And here's the thing. All the girls are tagged on my Instagram, so you can message every single one of them.
Okay. So
money is absolutely not a function of this. Not even 1%.
If he's in Houston, if one of his clients is in Houston, and
my girlfriend's in Houston. My girlfriend's in Houston.
Okay, right. And the guy rents a Lamborghini and he puts a picture of that next to a Instagram model. That's the thing. He's using money in an indirect way to sit there and get women. And
none of those guys did that.
Wait, Michael, let's let Knight finish, because he's trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. So yeah, on a short-term basis, you might have access to women sexually, maybe spend some time with them, go on some dates. But on the long-term basis, see, the thing is, you might have the experience to suss out that if a woman has sexual attraction for you, but I bet you can't teach that to your clients that are 20 years old, 21 years old, because you know what? They don't have the experience. They don't have the knowledge of women, female nature. And that's the thing about code approach. What a lot of people don't understand about code approach, it isn't just about getting sex. It's about learning about women, how to read body language, how to feel okay with rejection. You develop that body of knowledge, and then later on, you make the decision what kind of woman you're going to deal with.
So I just don't understand. If I'm around more women, how am I not learning that faster than you? It's like we're trying to play basketball. I play in more pickup games against better competition more frequently than you do because of the lifestyle that I set up. So no matter how much you do it, it's the equivalent of what you're doing is door-to-door salesman, and I am a guy with a sales funnel like an Amazon FBA. You get 1 lead per hour. I get 10,000 leads per hour. What I do is so incredibly scalable, on top of the fact that I was an approach coach. I did cold approach for a long time. And that's why I know from doing both, seeing very clearly, and obviously, I'm close friends with Dan Bilzerian. I know very clearly which one of these two things works indefatigably and which one of these things, again, it's almost like Newtonian physics versus relativity. Newtonian physics is true, but relativity is true on a larger scale. And Isaac Newton didn't know anything about relativity. It doesn't make Newtonian physics wrong. It just means that there's more information that you weren't aware of. And now that we have the advent of evolutionary psychology and the advent of social media, we now know that there's an additional truth. And it doesn't mean the original truth is wrong. Alan Roger Curry, rest in peace, he had some terrific books. Rollo Tomasi speaks really highly of him, and absolutely he had some terrific books. But the thing is, there was what he believed plus more. Social Circle is plus more. That's what it is. It's a new way of doing things. Just like we used to buy banner ads back in 2000 and we made money from banner ads. Nobody buys banner ads anymore. Now we do different type of advertising. It's a rotation. It's an addition to technology. I'll give you a great example. A guy was heavy into cold approach. He's my guest on the podcast next week, is How to Beast. How to Beast was heavy into pickup cold approach stuff. He's upgraded his technology. He now talks about being friends with women, social circle. He uses social media to get girls, and he also teaches fitness and how to make money. He's upgraded his technology. Pickup was a technology. Cold approach pickup was a technology that was invented, by the way. Neil Strauss is also a friend of mine, just in case you didn't know. I took Neil out for his birthday. Neil Strauss, what he was doing was displaying a new technology. That technology now has a derivative to it because we have new technology, like I said, like evolutionary psychology, and through the advent of social media and just the use of statistics, we can see which things are working and which are not. Men who do not have popular or very relevant social media platforms men who do not have that don't stand a chance against men who do. Like the guys that I just showed you, they don't stand a chance against those guys. They legitimately don't. And if they do, then you should be able to show some evidence that they do, but you're not going to be able to.
All right, so here's the problem. I hope the audience was listening real carefully. You noticed how he said cold approach was first what he did, and then he moved on to social circle. So what did he just say right there? You had the building blocks of code approach, and then he moved on to social circle. So he had the building blocks of learning how to read women's body language. He developed his skills. And now he's teaching that to guys that don't have those skills. So the thing about it is, what he's doing is he's wanting these guys to skip all the code approach and just hop over that straight to social circle. The problem with the guys that are going to go into your programs, a lot of those dudes, they're going to marry the first pretty girl that winks at them. They're not going to do that. A lot of guys, it takes a long time for guys to get a mute. And any guys out there that listen to this debate, a guy doesn't just wake up one day and, okay, well, I'm not impressed by women that are beautiful. That takes, I would say at the minimum, it would take a guy half a decade from the point where he seriously starts dating women, having sex with women, going on dates with women. A guy isn't going to wake up one day and, oh my God, there's a beautiful woman, walk past her and ignore her. That takes a long period of time. I'm not impressed by beauty. I haven't been impressed by beauty for a very long period of time.
Absolutely. But what happens with my clients is they don't actually marry the first girl that they see. The first guy, right? The first girl that they see, because specifically what happens is they're exposed to so many different women that they get to see. This woman has red flags. This woman does not have red flags. And I consistently do the sex thing. You're absolutely right. It's not all about the sex thing. In fact, I don't even teach a dating course, but I do frequently get remarks from my clients. Hey, Michael, I'm having too much sex. Michael, I'm sleeping with too many women. And it's gotten to a point where like, I actually don't feel good about myself because I've slept with so many women. So I totally understand what you're saying that. But the thing is, regardless of what you think you're teaching and what you think I'm teaching it faster because they're around so many more girls. The other thing I want to tell you is it wasn't a foundation of cold approach that helped me with women. It was actually the foundation of managing a strip club. It was like, I was red pill aware before there was a red pill. That was actually the difference. When I saw the men who were really good with women, they were not involved in pickup. The men who were really good with women had certain rules and certain understandings. And usually when I talked to the most beautiful women I ever met, I would always ask them, where'd you meet your boyfriend? And about 4 times out of 5, they met their boyfriend through another woman introducing them. And that's where we kind of came into this idea. And then I started talking to club promoters. I started talking to GMs of nightclubs and other people like that. And then they were like, yes, it's always the women who bring other women. So what I do is, because we all understand the concept of mate choice copying, or what we call in the manosphere pre-selection, it's called mate choice copying in psychology. We took the concept of mate choice copying and we took it to its nth degree. And the best example of that is obviously Dan Bilzerian. We took it to this nth degree. Does that spark attraction in women for a guy who's short, for a guy who's a different ethnicity, for a guy who's poor? And the answer is unequivocally yes. What we teach sparks attraction in women. And because they're around so many women, they learn over time, let's set a boundary here and not set a boundary here. So even if what you're saying about doing cold approach is beneficial, and I do think it's beneficial, but what you're saying about doing cold approach is beneficial, it's better for me to play more pickup games of basketball against better competition than for me to go one at a time, which is what cold approach does.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If there's a guy, let's say he's 21 years old and it's January 1st, how many women would he be around under your program in 1 year?
Oh man, hundreds. Hey, good guys in the chat, if you guys could, like Anthony DeRico or whatever, we do 60 days. Let me see. I mean, probably. So my guys in the program are coming to the Maxim party tomorrow. So that's 500 girls. I mean, in a year and 500 would be a low number just because the Super Bowl parties, the Maxim parties. Hey, Tristan, could you answer that question? So Tristan Darshan is one of the guys in our program. He's 21 years old and he's going to Harvard. There's also a Harvard professor in our program. There's 3 F-18 pilots, and there's about 10 medical doctors. Well, it's more than that, medical doctors in the program. There's several pilots and doctors in the program. Could you talk about how many, if you guys want to say in the chat, how many girls do you guys think you'd be around in the first year you were in the program? But I would say 500 would be like a low number.
Okay, but how many dates would they go on? How many different women would they go on dates with in a year? Really?
I mean, realistically, they could go on a date every day, 7 days a week if they wanted to, with a different girl.
Okay, but I mean, I think you would agree. Most guys out there, there's a lot of guys learn this pretty early on. If there's a group of women, you can't sit there and be dealing with every woman. You got to sit there and eventually pick the ones you want to deal with. Like you said, they'll pick you under your logic. You can't sit there. If there's 20 women, you can't go on a date with 20 different women in that same group.
No, I really haven't found that to be an issue. So maybe not in the same group, but we're talking about 500 women. So it's really not that big of an issue. Like there were points when I first moved here. I remember like probably the summer of 2016, I was going on a date with a different girl every day for like 12, 13 different days. It was not difficult, but I also live in Las Vegas, which is also very helpful. But no, that's definitely not a problem whatsoever. It's not like the idea of like, because these girls are in the same friend group, I can't date multiple of them. That's just not true. In fact, what happens often is if you have a really positive experience with one of the girls in the group and she moves on to do something else, other girls in that group want to go out with you. Frequently, whenever I start dating a girl seriously, I get hit up by girls that I used to talk to or friends of friends and stuff like that. In fact, it just happened yesterday. So it's pretty common.
Okay, so what I would say, it goes back to my major disagreement with social circle. I have a big issue with the woman knowing everything about me before we sleep together. She doesn't need to know I used to fly around the world for KPMG, Big Four. She doesn't need to know I drive a BMW. She doesn't need to know I graduated from A&M. My goal, and call it red pill, call it whatever you want to call it. My goal is to sleep with a woman as soon as possible after I meet her. What I have realized and what I've seen over a long period of time, the vast majority of women that I've ever slept with was on the first date, the first hangout, the same night. That's one of the things. And moreover, I would tell guys, you should be more prone to settle down with a woman that slept with you right away versus one that made you wait. Guys, I don't care what anyone says. Half the guys in the chat, half the guys in the manosphere, they would fail that test straight off the bat. Well, she's a slut because she slept with you right away. No, that's a lie. Most women are not sluts. That's a lie. Depending on how
I don't disagree with you there. Yeah, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I would marry someone who was the right person to marry. I don't care if she slept with me on the first date or the second date.
I mean, my thing is, if you really and truly, if there's a guy out there, whether it's yourself or some other guy, if they really and truly can teach a guy how to know if a woman has actual strong sexual desire for them, I don't have so much an issue with social circle game. The problem is, I know most guys in the world and the manosphere cannot teach that. However many big time manosphere content creators are out there, they cannot teach that. 95% of those guys cannot teach it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. Why do you think Andrew Tate reached out to me? Why do you think Rollo Tomasi reached out to me? Why do you think that Justin Waller came to my events? Do you think it's because I can't teach that?
There's a big group of people. You're already up there among the content creators.
No, I was actually. Andrew reached out to me when I wasn't a content creator. He just looked at my social media.
Okay, but you've been on Fresh and Fit, and you got connections to Rollo.
No, way before that. So it's the opposite. Andrew Tate reached out to me, and then he hooked me up with Justin Waller, who hooked me up with Rollo, who then hooked me up with Fresh and Fit. It was the opposite way.
There's no way for anyone to confirm that. All I'm saying is,
okay. So hey, do you want me to screen share my messages between me and Andrew Tate? I can do that. We can do that if you want.
We can debate principles and logic behind what I say.
Okay. No, I'm just asking you, why do you think that if I can't teach that, why do you think they reached out to me?
I didn't say you necessarily cannot teach it. All I'm saying is most guys in the world cannot teach it. I could sit here and break it down on what I would tell a guy if he really cared about it, right? So the first one is a woman, more likely than not, she should sleep with you right away. That's number one. Number two is going to sound really ridiculous out there to guys, but I'm dead serious when I say this. A lot of the women that I slept with, doesn't matter, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, they didn't even know my name. They barely even knew my name. And you know why they didn't know my name? Because they didn't care. Because they were so strongly sexually attracted to me, they could really care less. So they fucked first and they asked questions later. That's another thing that I would say. Now, would that work all the time? No, a lot of times it wouldn't. A lot of times a woman is going to know your name, right? That's true. The thing about it is this stuff starts getting really complicated because under your logic, under the social circle stuff, some women, and I know it's happened before, whether you want to admit it or not, there's been some women that have slept with some of your clients on purpose because they're like, oh, well, he makes a lot of money. I'm going to get child support. I'm gonna get pregnant by him, and now he's stuck for $20K a month of child support.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I mean, okay. I'm like, listen, you could be right, but I can't think of like not because of MOA they didn't. I don't really child support. Like listen, I do 3-hour calls per week, and I'm on with all my clients. I've never heard of that, so maybe. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just like that seems kind of unusual.
Okay.
The thing is, we don't lead with money. It's like taking steroids. If you take steroids, you have to keep taking steroids forever because it fucks up your endocrine system. If you lead with money with women, you have to lead with money forever. So the thing for us is we teach guys specifically to not lead with money. By the way, Knight, do you know what car I drive?
No idea.
That's exactly right. You don't know. So it's before going back where you're like, you know everything about me. You don't know everything about me. That's my point. I wear a black t-shirt every day. I get on stage at clubs and I don't have to pay to get into any of them because I teach guys how to do social circle. Like you don't know anything really about me. What you do know is that I'm able, like in the last hour, I've been on the phone with Abigail Ratchford, Lindsay Palis, and Emily Sears because they're coming to my party tomorrow. In that last hour, just me hanging out with them, that other girls are going to be like, who the fuck is this guy that knows my 3 favorite models in the world? In your estimation, well, those girls might not like you for the right reason. Right, but the problem is it's 1,000 girls. It's 2,000 girls. At some point, being exposed to that many women, you're just going to have the ability to meet incredible women. Does that make sense? Like it's a numbers game. Hey, can you share my screen real quick? Alex, because I want to show just one real thing. 30 seconds.
Can you add it back? Because
oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah, hold on. Just one last thing before we go, because I know this is probably going to be another question. But after all this, are you sharing it?
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yeah. In the end, I found the perfect woman. Okay. I found an incredible woman who cares about me deeply. And I did this through through social circle, fully understanding what it is that I'm doing. I found an amazing, amazing woman who takes care of me. Okay. By the way,
she looks like a hotter version of Mila Kunis.
She's from Houston, by the way. FYI, she's originally from Arkansas. But the thing is, when we do all that, several of my clients hit me up and they say the same thing. The most common thing my clients tell me is, "Hey, Michael, I slept with the most beautiful woman I've ever been with in my life. I don't know what to do now." That is a common issue that I have, is that we level you up so fast, so quickly. A lot of the times the guys can't go from the $5 poker table to the $5,000 poker table. They don't know how to play that game yet. So that is one issue we do have in my program, is that you're around so many beautiful women so fast that a lot of times for guys, initially it's overwhelming. But the thing is, just like when I was in the military, they used to put us behind berms and fire live bullets over our head so we could hear what live bullets sounded like. And after a while, our heart rate starts to slow down and our autonomic nervous system stops firing so much. And then we can become calm under the fire. That's what happens when you're with beautiful women all the time, is you become very calm of being around them all the time. That's called immersion, or immersion therapy from psychology. When you're just around beautiful women all the time, now when you come and you meet that girl that has the same principles that you're looking for, maybe she's a Christian, maybe she has a really good degree, or maybe she comes from a great family. When you meet that girl, you're not fumbling and stumbling because you just kept doing hardcore cold approach the whole time and didn't really understand how to listen and read women.
Okay, so this is what I would say. Can you just, I'm sure a lot of people are interested. If you meet a guy today and he's hitting you up and he's going to be your client, can you walk us through a little bit, I don't know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of what you would do? You're going to take them to this club. You're going to take them to Vegas. What are you going to do? Like, just
okay, so that's such a great example. If you guys go to MOA Forum, if somebody could put it up in the chat there. So you're going to go our new school server. It's MOA Forum. Or if you guys want to look at me on Facebook, my Facebook group will send you a link to MOA Forum in school. Step number 1 is we have to fix your social media. Your social media needs to not make you look like a child molester. 90% of guys out there have creepy social media, and they don't realize they do. It's a lot of close-ups of their face. They look like Grindr profiles, and they don't understand what it is that women are looking for. Even Alex, even your buddy in Brazil, he's even now teaching guys how to fix their Instagram. I don't know if you noticed that recently. Like, that's the main thing. Number 1, we have to make an actual fucking viable Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media platform you have. And by the way, it doesn't have to have women. A lot of my clients don't have any women on their thing. It has to show higher status and access to scarce resources. We don't show money. We don't show money on Instagram. That's number 1. Number 2, we build a list. You guys remember the dream sheets that you would see people would put on their refrigerator? I want this car to make this much money. And they had like this dream body that they wanted. Well, we make dream sheets, except they're Excel spreadsheets, and they're the 200 guys we want to network with. So for me, I want to network with the mayor of Las Vegas. I want to network with the owner of the Raiders. Like, people like that go on my list. And then there's 2,000 female influencers that they also want to message. They also want to get to know. They want to network with. And that goes in the second column over here to the right. Then the third step is that we find different events that we can coordinate with these people to get to know them. So for me, if you guys want to steal my events, the Babes in Toyland events, the Maxim events, the Teatro events, the Playboy events, or the bikini competition that I host at Wet Republic, or Paradise Challenge, any of those things, or Swimsuit USA, those are the events that you can invite girls to. And when you invite girls to those events, you don't have to go to those events and the girls don't have to go, but it creates an open thread between you and thousands of women. And we teach you how to hire a virtual assistant. They do all this for you. It's very simple. And we actually write the invites for you. It's very easy to do this. And then the fourth thing is you have to get 6 females to go with you to one of these events. And this is the most difficult part because it's actually easier to throw your own event than it is to get 6 girls to come with you to someone else's event. And at this point, this is when we institute the idea of female champions. These are women that introduce you to other women. This is a very key component, especially for me, because I have to fill guest lists of 500 girls. I'm not a club promoter, but I do host some of these parties and I'm a recruiter for some of these bikini competitions. When I have to fill this out, I need women to introduce me to more women. So those would be the first 4 steps. And then there's a 30 book list that you have to go through, starting with How to Win Friends and Influence People. We go over all of Jocko Willick's books, Dan Bilzerian's book. We go over all of David Goggins' books. We go over all these different things about mindset. And also one I love, Rollo doesn't like this book, but I love it. It's Jeffrey Wilson and Tucker Mack's book, Mate. I fucking love that book. That book so totally coincides with what I teach. And additionally, Dr. Ashley Mears wrote a book called Very Important People, which also is a fantastic book as far as the description of how nightlife and that kind of like models and bottles game work. So those are the things that I would do. And then afterwards, we have these group calls that we have everyone come on, and they're 4 hours long, and we answer every single question. And we have all of our networking coaches go and assist you with any question that you have dealing with your social circle. But we even do little stuff like sales funnels. We do stuff like helping with you with your sales. We have one guy in my program is an accountant. He started his own weekly Zoom calls. He's made millions of dollars from doing that. So we try to teach you networking. I understand. I'm on Alex's show. We're talking about dating specifically. This has a lot more to do with dating than MOA has a lot more to do with other things than dating. But in this context, this is what we would teach you in the first maybe week. That's what you'd go through. There's about 1,100 hours of content. It's going to take you 6 months to get through the program.
All right, so let me ask you this. What would be your answer to this question? What about the guys that they would tell you, well, I don't want to mix business with pleasure and I don't want to get me too? What about that?
That's fantastic. So that's essentially what was going on with me. So I'm a U.S. Air Force captain, and I had to separate the two things. So there's a couple things that we do. Number one, there's this thing called a close friends list on Instagram. So what you do is on your close friends list, you would just add girls that you want to network with, like really attractive women that you want to network with or go to parties with or whatever. And then the rest of your stories that were public, that's what your family and the people at work would see. The second option is to make your Instagram private. We don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. The third option is to do what, like, again, we have one plastic surgeon, Dr. Mike, who's in my program, and we have another guy named Vincent. They specifically do Instagrams that show high status, but there's 0 women in their Instagram. They don't do anything dealing with women. They don't have any like risque things like that. So guys who have top secret government clearance, or you work at like some place that's very like a hospital or maybe something like that. Generally for those guys, we have a little bit of a different protocol. But what I've also found is that a lot of medical doctors, their boss doesn't care. As far as getting Me Too'd, I think you're going to get Me Too'd when you do something that's overtly creepy. Because my program has, by the way, there's women that come on the calls. Frequently, I have like huge models. Caitlin Runk's been on the call. Kylie Myers has been on the call. I'm going to have Lindsay Palis on the call coming up pretty soon. Emily Sears is coming on my podcast. Abigail Ratchford. I have huge models that come on the call. There's nothing that we do in our program that women find offensive or problematic. And because of that, I never have any concern about being Me Too. What we do, however, is make you the most attractive version of yourself, most attractive for employers, most attractive for sponsors, most attractive for future people that you want to network with, most attractive for mentors, and most attractive for women that you want to date. All
right. So here's the thing. The average guy can sit there and realistically do cold approach at a bar, and it's more of a normal activity. Mm-hmm. What do you think about, the average guy? Okay, he's going to come to you and he's going to go into these programs and there's going to be all these women. Why would one of these women that's a model, why would she deal with an average guy?
Oh, she would deal with them because of the first 4 steps that I told you initially. First, we have to fix your Instagram. And second, we build your list. Third, we have events. So here's the thing. Right now, I promise you, if I took your Instagram and I fixed it, and like we went out and you live in San Antonio, you live in Houston now, right? So if I took you out in front of Minute Maid Park and we had a bunch of like cool, like you out in La Pointe and like all these different places out in Galveston, and just had like maybe just 10 to 15 really cool photos of you. just to show that you travel, that you're clean cut, maybe showing some upper body muscle, some physique, that you're in shape, just normal stuff, but backed out pictures, not close up. This is not a grinder profile. If we did that first off, and then we had you message several girls, which by the way, I give all my clients the ability to do this for the Maxim Carnival party next week or tomorrow, or to go to Babes in Toyland Pet Edition on March 18th. If you message girls that in the way that I show you how to do it, complete with video and irrefutable visual evidence, you're going to find that those average guys are going to start getting messages from these higher status girls. And initially, they're not going to want to date them. But what happens is the pot just grows. And then it's like, oh, you know Sally, I know Sally. And what happens is all of a sudden, the girls that these girls follow start following you, and then they start following you. And it becomes this avalanche. The guys who are up at the top, the ones that you think are not average, this is what they did to get there. What I'm just describing to you now. I'm giving that piece of game away. So that's essentially what they would do is we go through the first 4 steps. 1, you have to fix your Instagram. 2, you build your list. 3, we find events for you to invite people to. By the way, let me say this one more time. 91% of my engagement on social media comes from people who don't follow me. So that means you have to post on social media a lot. It's going to grow the more good content you put up there. And then number 4, you have to bring 6 girls with you to other events. And those 6 girls introduce you to other women.
All right. So let's say there's a woman that's 26 years old and she's beautiful and she wants to settle down. She wants to start a family. Realistically speaking, those women that are that age range, they don't want to deal with younger guys. They don't want to marry a guy that's younger. And if you say that's not true, you're being disingenuous. These women, they don't want to marry a 19-year-old. They don't want to marry a 20-year-old. They don't want to marry a 21-year-old that's at A&M, that's a sophomore. He's still trying to figure out how to tie his shoes.
Hook them.
Out of these younger guys, the most important part, there's a steep learning curve, very beginning, first years. So I don't see how social circle at your level works for guys from age, 18 to 25. How about that?
That's a great question. So the thing is, while that may be an issue, it's going to be an issue no matter what you do. So what generally happens is if you're the high school quarterback on the varsity football team, you're at the top of the food chain. Then you go to college and now you're back at the bottom of the food chain. This is just a function of life. And this is something, I'm 45 years old now. And so for me, I had to build and build and build to become the man that I am with my physique, with the money that I make, and with the business that I build, and with the connections that I make. That was work for me. Women don't have to do that same kind of work. At the end of the work that I do, I get to receive the fruits and the benefits of my labor. That's what ends up happening for me. So at 21, 22, you haven't done that, which is why women won't choose that. If you're telling me that you're like that, well, there's a way through cold approach to get these 26-year-old women to want to go out with these guys, you're being disingenuous also. I'm not saying that's the case. What I am saying though is there needs to be a period, not needs to, I don't want to say that. I recommend that there's a period in every guy's life where you date multiple women and don't worry about marriage. When women grow up, sometimes you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, I want to be a bride. I want to have a huge wedding. When you ask boys when they grow up, they never say, what do you want to be when you grow up? They never say, I want to be a groom. When boys grow up, they never say, I want to get married. When boys grow up, they want to be a fireman. They want to be an astronaut. They want to be a police officer. They want to be a rock star. When women grow up, they want to be a fairy princess getting married. So I think for men, it shouldn't be such a huge priority in your early 20s to even consider getting married, because you need to establish yourself financially, physically, emotionally, intellectually before you even consider getting married. That's what my advice would be.
Okay, so you notice that I'm not asking questions that are not good faith. I'm asking good faith questions.
Sure.
So the next one I would say, and then I'm going to answer my own question. Let's say a guy is just straight up starting off from scratch. He knows nothing about women. He's never been on a date. He's never slept with a woman. And let's say he started your program. How many years would it take for him to have a real elite level of knowledge where he knows more about women than 90% of the men in the world? What would you say?
So for 90% of the women, so I think 90% of the men in the world know nothing about women. So I don't think that's a very high bar, to be honest with you. In my program, I think because I recommend that you read The Ape That Understood the Universe, I recommend that you read Mate, because I recommend you read The Murderer Next Door, The Evolution of Desire, Why Women Have Sex, because there's a book list that I have you go through. I'd say before 90% of the world, 30 days. Before almost 99% of men in the world, I'd say 60 days, maybe 90 days.
So you think in 2 months, a guy...
2 months. Yeah, I'd say 3 months, yeah.
Okay.
By the way, but my whole thing is not to rush you through. I would rather you learn these. Tom Brady did not become Tom Brady. If you look at Tom Brady, his first year playing for the Patriots, all he was doing was checking down and throwing the ball to tight ends. He really didn't know. It wasn't until 2007 till we really started opening up the offense and going after Randy Moss and Wes Welker. That was a different Tom Brady. over time, you gain experience. You can see that with Brady. You can see that with Breeze. You can see that with LeBron. They gain experience. There's something to be said because as men, our reproductive career is so much longer. There's something to be said for taking time to learn these lessons. If you're just good with women off the bat when you're 22, you might need to have a girl fuck you over just so you learn that lesson, so that when your homeboy is dealing with the same thing, you can teach him that lesson too. So getting rich fast is not always the best way. Sometimes getting rich slow is also the best way.
Okay, let me, I guess, define elite. By elite, I would say a guy that's ready to vet women for marriage, but here's the catch. To marry a woman that likes a guy for a well-rounded list of reasons.
Okay.
The first reason being the top reason, number one, being looks, sexual attraction, which obviously looks is a part of sexual attraction, and there's more to it. A lot of women, it's not what I say, but a lot of women have told me they sleep with me because I'm intelligent. That's what they say. So I'm just saying, how long would a guy take under that metric to be ready for prime time?
What was the specific metric about the guy to where he's sleeping with a lot of women?
No, not sleeping with a lot of women, not getting women, being able to vet women for marriage, being ready to vet women for marriage.
To be fair, man, 53% of the marriages in this country end in divorce, and 78% of those divorces are initiated by women. I'm not going to go headlong and say everyone needs to get married. You understand what I'm saying? I teach a course on networking. So if you want me to go into the marriage statistics, we can. Marriage, as it is stated currently, I believe marriage without the government involvement, I would recommend to men along with a prenup. I don't recommend that men go headlong into marriage for any specific reason. So I don't want to speak on the thing that I'm not super qualified to speak on. As far as being able to suss out whether or not a girl is relationship material or would be a good mother, that's a different question. And in those cases, you're going to look for things. Again, I would highly recommend the book. It's called Walking on Eggshells, Dealing with People with Borderline Personality Disorder, and another book called Conquering the Sociopath Next Door. These are great books to help you suss out when you're dealing with a woman who has borderline personality disorder or is a sociopath or is dealing with narcissism. These are the type of people you would not want to be the mother of your children. So we do have a specific set of books recommended for that subject. But again, like I said before, everything we do is evidence-based. The information I give is always coming from a PhD.
All right. So
by the way, just as a very quick side note, because you're talking about doing marriage without government's involvement, you can actually do that in pretty much every state. You can do a private marriage. So you have all the same benefits, but you don't have to actually have the contract that, if things don't work out, you lose 50% of your assets. So
exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, I would probably recommend that. It's really not nice to have like an arrangement where the woman is like, she is literally incentivized to break up with you. She's incentivized. Like the number one, again, I'm not trying to be misogynistic here or anything. I apologize for this, but the number one way that women become millionaires in the United States is divorce. It is by far the number one way that women become millionaires in the U.S. So that is one of the issues that you have to deal with in this situation. So I personally, I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, let's do all this to get married. But what I am going to do, I don't know if you watch basketball, but I'm a Mavericks fan. I'm from Dallas. Jalen Brunson, he went to the Knicks. And my job is not to choose where Jalen Brunson goes, but to get Jalen Brunson good enough to where multiple teams ask him to play for them. My job for you as a man is not to choose whether or not you get married or don't get married. That's not my point. I'm a libertarian. I don't choose your direction. But what I do is help you gain the immense amount of abundance that you need to make any choice you want, to get any of the girls that you desire and the job you desire, and have the scalable business you desire, the 8 or 9 figure business you desire. I teach you those abundance concepts.
All right. So can I answer my own question? So notice that the question that was answered was what I said. I didn't say for a guy, I'm not saying that a guy should get married. That's a guy's personal choice. I said the metric is for a guy to be able to vet women for marriage, which is the ultimate thing that could screw a guy over in this country, which is one of the main reasons the manosphere exists.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the question I asked. I don't think, what I mean is the metric. It's like playing in the NBA. It's the highest level on the world. And the most difficult thing is for men to vet women for marriage. So my thing is, I think I highly disagree with what he said, 2-3 months for a guy to be able to do that. I would say it takes years. Now, here's the problem with what he said. And it's just this industry, call it whatever you want to call it, pickup coaches, dating coaches, mentors, life coaches, all this other stuff. When you give these type of promises that a guy's going to learn that elite knowledge of women to be able to vet women for marriage, not that you're pushing marriage, that's not realistic. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, not even a year, not even 2 years. That's not realistic.
Okay, so let's go over the specific techniques I teach for vetting people, not specifically women. The technique that you guys might want to write this down. It's called the technique of circles. Circle one are the people who basically they know all your passwords. This is your mom, your closest friend, maybe even your attorney. This is circle one. Circle two are people that you very much like and you trust very much, but they're not quite to the level of circle one. Circle three are people that you're neutral about. People that you probably would like if you got to know them more, but you don't know them a lot. Most of my clients are in circle three or circle two. A couple of them are in circle one. And then circle four are people you don't like because they've shown you signs, red flags. They always talk about their ex. They've cheated in several previous relationships, things like that. That's going to be circle four. These are people you have to deal with, but you don't necessarily want to go over overtly and deal with a ton of. And circle five are people you just avoid like the plague. So what we do is we categorize these people in circles, and then we confer with each other in MOA because we are a brotherhood. We confer with each other in MOA. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with this woman. And since we have literally thousands of years of experience between all of us, some of the guys in MOA have been in pickup for almost 20 years. Because we have thousands of years in between us, we can then give them the assistance that they need in order to figure out, hey man, this is the rule number one in MOA is we don't listen to the words. And so that's what happens. A woman is sitting there telling you this, and this, and we take the words out and we say, describe the situation without the words. And then you're just like, well, she didn't call me when she said she was going to, she hung out over at her ex-boyfriend's house. She posted this. So we just pay attention to actions and not words. And the answer tends to be very clear when we do that. So we do we have an understanding of psychology through cluster B personality disorders like borderline personality disorder, sociopathy, et cetera. And then we also have the circle concept. And then we also have a brotherhood concept where we come together and we go over, hey, why is this working out or this not working out? So that would be the answer of how we'd be able to suss out whether or not someone's doing that. And yes, I do think 90 days you'd be able to do that. I think you could, let's go back to your example you said about the NBA. You do understand if the NBA is the best, then in order for a player to develop his game, he needs to be playing the most minutes in the NBA he can and not be playing in the G League or in Canada. He needs to be playing the most minutes in the NBA. Social circle game gets you the most minutes in the NBA that you can. That's the reason why it is so incredibly devastating. When my guys do social circle game for a while, when they go do cold approach, it's so easy for them because there's no fear, because there's around beautiful women all the time. So approach anxiety, it just doesn't exist whatsoever because they're consistently around attractive women. So it's just never an issue. It's almost a cheat code for cold approach when you get really good at social circle.
All right, so let me ask you this. What are the problems, forget social circle for a minute. What problems do you have with cold approach? And then I'll respond to what you say.
Oh, it's not that I have a problem. Cold approach. It's I drive a car. What problems do I have with a horse and buggy? That's kind of what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with a horse and buggy. It's just I need to get to LA and I don't want to take a horse and buggy. I'd rather take an airplane. Social circle is a technological advancement from cold approach. That's just the way I look at it. Cold approach is a necessary skill, but my issue is it's 2% of game. Like it's just the inbound pass in basketball. That's all it is. Where it's not all of basketball. All of basketball would include your physique, your facial, the way you would maintain eye contact, your symmetry, your vocal tonality, your pitch and your tone, your connections, all these things put together. Just think about if you're playing Madden or 2K, all the sliders up to like 80 or 90 or 99. You want to get all of those sliders up to a certain point. That's essentially what it is that we teach you in those situations.
So I would say, here's the thing. I would say part of cold approach, there has to be some bump and bruises. If a guy tells me he's never gone through some bump and bruises and he learned everything in 90 days, I would tell him you're not anywhere close ready to vet women for marriage. You're not ready to move in a girlfriend in your house. I would say that's part of the process. And that's what a lot of people don't get about certain things that we talk about. When these guys are trying to say, well, because there are some dating coaches that say this, oh, well, you'll get a 70% success rate. Part of the trouble, part of the learning process is bumping your head in the ceiling. And that's the thing so when you guarantee all these results in 30 days.
Nobody's guaranteeing results. What I am guaranteeing you is that you're going to read 30 books. And you're going to read books that are going to give you information from an evidence-based platform. And then you're going to receive the experience that we put in the program. There's 114 modules and over 1,500 hours of content. during that time, you will receive that experience. Now, what you choose, I still have clients that are really dumb, bro. They do not listen to what we say. And they're like, yeah, Michael, I agree with everything you say. And then they end up like marrying a stripper. For sure, that has happened before. It's very rare. And the rest of us are like, bro, what are you doing? That's when somebody chooses to be willfully ignorant. That still happens. That's why no one can guarantee anything when it comes to a coaching program, because some people choose to be willfully ignorant. Does that make sense? But like the point I'm trying to make is, can you share my screen again?
Sure.
Like, I understand what you're saying, man, but this is my birthday party. And like, I just think that this is the life I would rather live. I'd rather live a life where like this many girls just show up to whenever I ask them to come to anything. Like this was not difficult for me to put together. There were 54 girls. The only regret I have in my night for my birthday party is that I didn't invite more dudes. I really wish more guys had showed up to this, because this is what my life looks like. I don't know what other evidence people need. This works. What I teach works unequivocally, and it gets you the most exposure to, by the way, I just happen to be in Vegas, and I'm using this as more of like hyperbole. Obviously, I don't want you guys all going to nightclubs and talking to girls in Vegas nightclubs. That's not what I want you to do. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you can bench press 300 pounds, then you can bench press 200 pounds. When you can keep the attention of someone a girl like that, then when you meet that nice girl who's got her master's degree and comes from a good family, keeping her attention is actually orders of magnitude easier, because you played in the NBA already, right? So when you meet that girl who's in the G League, you already played in the NBA. You've already taken those bullets. You've already been in live fire. So there's no problem. You're already immersed in it. You're already used to it. It's so easy for you to deal with because you're consistently exposed to that. Does that make sense?
I agree, somewhat. This is what I would say. What percentage of the stuff in the manosphere you think is true? There has to be some stuff that's not true. So put a percentage on it. And then
it's tough. It's tough. So it depends on who you're quoting. Like, as far as like the stuff in the manosphere, that's a really great question. I don't know. So one of the problems, and maybe Alex didn't explain this to you. So I'm red pill adjacent. I'm an evolutionary psychology guy, and I'm friends with Rollo. Rollo's like my brother, but I'm not like I'm red pill aware, if you want to say that. But as far as manosphere, they have cordially invited me, but I wouldn't like legitimately say that I'm like a manosphere guy more than I am like a networking guy. Does that make sense?
Okay, so this is what I would say. I would say about 80% of the stuff in the manosphere is true.
Okay.
And the 20% that isn't true, it's some of the most dangerous stuff in the world.
Like what?
Okay, the 80-20 rule. We can start there.
Yeah.
The vast majority, and I'm not going to call out names, but there's a bunch of big-time content creators that mess up that rule. What they say, not me, what they say is 80% of women are sleeping with 20% of men. No, that's not the rule, the so-called rule. 80% of women think more or less 20% of men are very attractive.
Agreed. And Rollo and I said that on our last episode of Access Vegas. Yeah, we agree with that.
Okay, but would you agree a lot of guys out there mess up the rule?
Sure. But by the way, the Pareto principle, by the way, the 80-20 rule isn't actually accurate. So if you look at a normal distribution, it's 68.27% is the middle standard deviation. And so the outside of one standard deviation is 14%. So the reality, it's 16%. So it's really the 84-16 rule. That's mathematically what it is. We just call it the 80-20 rule. But no, going back to what you're saying, the reason why those numbers come up is because on dating apps, when they report their figures, they show that the top 10% of men on dating apps are getting 63% of the right swipes. And the top 20% of men are getting 83% of the right swipes. And while this may seem problematic, there are very simple things I can do to average men to make their dating apps, to make their profile in dating apps, put them in that top 10%. It's not just facial symmetry. There's so many other little things that you can do to make your dating profile in that top 10%. And so that's what I would teach men to do. And that is a significant problem. Also, that general survey study that shows the one from the US Census showing that what happened before 2008, about 16% of men were having zero sexual partners. And now in 2023, we're about 33% of men between the ages of 18 and 30 are having zero sexual partners. That would be indicative of a large group of men having very little chance with women and a small group of men having access to an abundance of women. And that's essentially what we've seen. And so that's why with the concept of hypergamy comes. But as far as 80-20, it could be whatever number you want. It doesn't really matter. But I do agree with you. They're not sleeping with all of the women. However, I will say this. There were a number of men that were like virgins. About 8% of men, I think, are virgins like throughout their whole life or something like that. But like the number of men, the average number of sexual partners that a man has is about 6 for men. And then when you got up in the top 5%, it's about 150. That scale up has happened recently. where we see women are having about the same amount of sexual partners, there's a large group of men having none and a small group of men sleeping with 400 or 500 women. And so that's where that whole 80-20 rule, but the number 80, 81, 82, 83, that's not really important. What's important is that what's called fractals. It's sort of a bifurcation. I like to make this saying there's 3 genders in the human species: high status men, low status men, and women. They're 3 different genders. High status men and low status men have nothing to do with each other. So that's why I would make that point. Are you correct? Is it a slight misinterpretation? Sure, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I think the overall point is still correct, though. There are a large number of men having extreme advantage over the other men. And I'll tell you one thing they all have in common: they've got social media.
I would say it's more like 1% of men do like 50 to 60% of the fucking. I don't even think it's 20% of men. I don't know if it's. I would go with you. 10% of men do 50% of the fucking. I don't know if it's 1%, but we're just arguing. Like, I agree with your overall point, but I think it's probably more like 10% of men. I don't know if it's 1%.
Okay, so here's the problem. To the audience. You noticed how he was able to break it down. Now, remember, he's the expert and he's the one that's teaching guys. The problem is when you have guys that are going from here to here and they're skipping all the code approach, they're skipping all the bumps and bruises, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to do what I did because
So just to be clear, there is some cold approach in my program. It's just not a lot. It's just but I teach you how to do cold approach in like a really simple way. It's just you walk up. It's called a Snapchat opener, and then we invite girls to events in real life. That's how we do cold approach. I just don't want you to think there's no cold approach. There is some.
Okay, so but what I'm saying is, if you were to bring a guy on right now from your program and he had never heard the conversation, could he break it down on any kind of level the way we just broke it down?
Can we do that, Alex? Yeah, they probably heard it, but I mean, there's a bunch of guys in the chat. They could probably do it. Yeah. So one of the things what we do is in the beginning we make you memorize those first 4 steps. So yes, it would be very evident. And also at certain points you have to finish the books. So yeah, definitely. I think honestly, understanding the evolution of desire, mate, like some of those books, just those books alone, you're going to understand a lot of obviously the Rational Male, like those books too. You're going to understand a lot of it just from reading a lot of those books.
All right. So the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I debated with the Black Manosphere about the concept of most women are not sluts. Now, that's the big enchilada. That's one of the main things in Manosphere that's been a big problem over a long period of time. And for me to try to convince guys that most women are not sluts, they'll sit there and they'll fight me all day long. They'll beat me with a stick and say that's not true. So let me define slut, first of all, before we get into it. I would define it as more or less 20 to 25 bodies by the age of 30 for a woman. I would say only about 20 to 30% of women have that body. Now, here's the thing. We all know how most works. So some of these guys, they really and truly think 60, 70, 80% of women have real high body counts. So when I hear on this one show, and I'm not going to say what show it is. So when I hear these guys on this one show asking women on every show, what's your body count?
Oh, I wonder what show that could be.
Okay,
that's not a survey of all women.
No. Wait a minute. Once you've asked so many women, you can draw conclusions from it. So if you're sitting there asking 500, 700, 800 women,
they've had 2,000 on.
Okay. So if all these women are saying 7 bodies, 6 bodies, 5 bodies, 8 bodies, I mean, a lot of women, that is true that they're going to lie. I mean, I'll give them that. But the thing is, that's a big problem because there's 50,000, 5 million, 10 million men that have heard this in the world. Oh yeah, most women are sluts. That's not true. That's not factual. And that's kind of the problem. I could sit here all day long and break down why most women are not sluts. Most guys not do that. And you know why they can't do that? Because they have not cold approached the number of women I have. They have not gone on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dates with women, right? Not slept with enough women. And that's kind of the problem I have with social circle game, because unless they've got to that type of level, you say immersed with the program and meeting all these women. There's a difference between dating women and sleeping with women versus being around beautiful women. It's not the same thing.
So they do all 3. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I would just say as a quick side note, the vast majority, like the majority of women, body count is in the single digits.
Agreed. So if we just, again, so what you're talking about is, and we agree on this point, is men who are angry and then like they've been rejected by women, therefore they're all sluts. A woman who won't have sex with you is a slut. The reality situation is the majority of women, and a lot of guys don't realize we're including all women, even the women that you don't find attractive, that live in the trailer park, that are overweight and have 4 kids. We're still including them. The average body count for women is about 4. And in the top 5%, it's actually 35. So a lot of those guys you're talking about, like, oh no, there's no way that's true. What happens is when you're always at the club and always at the bar, you're getting a disproportionate number of women who are in that higher body count range. And what happens for men is men grow their value, but when women start sleeping around with lots of men, they kind of get in this trap where as they get older, then they can't compete with the 23-year-old versions of themselves, but they can still get sex from men who they like. Again, great example would be Mia Khalifa. You know, Mia Khalifa saying, oh, it's really strange or it's weird that men want to date younger women. Well, that's because when she was younger, everyone wanted to date her. And now that she's older, I'm just guessing, she's probably been out with some guys who just want to use her for sex because she's older and she was their favorite porn star. And so what happens for women is, though there's a few group of you women, I'm not saying it's the majority, certainly not 60%. Of women, what they do is they get caught in this trap where they sleep with a guy, it doesn't work out, and like, whoops, it didn't work out, so then they sleep with another guy. But the reality of the situation is because when they were younger, they're just not tuned up to be in a relationship, and they become so, Myron uses the example of keep peeling the tape off over and over again, it loses its adhesive quality. There's these studies that show when men have more sexual partners before marriage, it dips after virginity, but then it kind of, once it gets to 10, it actually goes back up. And when women have more sexual partners before marriage, it starts at about 65% satisfaction. And then once it gets to 10, it drops down almost to below 50%. So when women have more sexual partners before marriage, it hurts their marriage. When they have more than 21 sexual partners, they have like a 17% chance of staying in a marriage. But for men, it doesn't seem to affect them as much. So going back to what you said, I don't think the majority of women are sluts. What I think is that these guys are exposed to certain women at certain clubs on certain YouTube channels, and that's what they see specifically. And just, I'm sure Alex can say this too. I know, Alex, you do like a speed dating thing or whatever. Women who come on your show want to be on YouTube. That's a specific subset of women. A specific subset of women that want to do that. A lot of women don't want to come on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a massive sample bias, right? So
correct, exactly.
You see a massive sample bias.
Correct.
And a lot of guys try to think that's what the average girl is like. The average girl is nothing like what you see on Fresh and Fit, right? But by
the way, let's just be clear. That's not Fresh and Fit's fault. They have to do 3 shows a week with 9 girls. Who are the girls that are going to want to come on the show? They're the ones who want to grow their social media following.
I'm not blaming them. I'm just making a point about sample bias.
Yeah, I know some people are like, oh, they're deliberately misrepresent. No, they're not. That's just who wants to come on the show. That's why I do my show with Rollo every 2 weeks, because we want 6 new girls. And every time I have a porn star, across from her, I have a girl with a master's degree. I try to have a spectrum of girls with different experiences and different body counts.
Okay, so here's my thing. My goal on my channel is to put out the most accurate information out there, and then a guy can do whatever he wants with it.
Sure.
I would say this. Until a guy has done 3 things, he's not going to have a baseline understanding of women on a real level. 1,000 code approaches. That's number 1. More or less 30 bodies, right? And we're talking about a man, right? Having slept with.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So 30 women. 1,000 code approaches, and then the other one is over 100 dates with a bunch of different women. So if I go out with one woman, I don't know, 50 times, and another woman 20 times, that doesn't count. So I would say, I don't know, 60 women, 100 dates. Yeah. And that thing about that is, once you start doing something like that, you can start breaking this stuff down and start talking about the stuff that's wrong in the manosphere. That's the thing. The 80-20 rule, that's frequently messed up. Most men, even content creators, they push this junk saying that most women are sluts, including the 2 guys in Miami. They ask the question, and they throw their little cap, their little red cap or blue cap or pink cap or polka dot cap, whatever.
It's usually blue, but yeah.
And the point is, they don't know what they're talking about. That's the point. And that's why I started a channel. See, the thing is, if a guy thinks that most women are sluts, at the end of the day, he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's 3 things. Let me say that real quick. There's 3 things that I got to hear from a guy, and if they can't accurately talk about this stuff, I know they don't know what they're talking about. Number 1, the whole slut thing we just talked about. That's number 1. Number 2, they can't break down 80-20 rule in a real substantive way. And then number 3, this one, I mean, it's my favorite one, quite honestly. Mode 1. See, a lot of guys, they can't really break down the logic of mode 1 because they haven't dealt with enough women. Rest in peace, ARC. You'd have to sit there and argue with these people day and night because they never understood the logic behind it. The whole point is, I'm not convinced, back to the social circle concept, I'm not convinced that the guy would get enough knowledge, enough practice, and get the breadth of experience dealing with women under your program and social circle game. I'm not convinced.
I just can you share my screen again? I'm confused how they're going to be exposed to this and not get enough practice. I guess that's what I'm a little confused by. How are they not? How are they living a life like this and not getting enough practice? That's just what I would like to understand.
Okay.
I think this is nothing but like this. No offense, but like most guys in PUA are not sitting next to girls who look like this. Like that's the only point. I'm not trying to brag, but my point is, like, I just don't understand how you're not learning anything just because you have some sort of bias against these girls. I think you would learn something from being around girls that's attractive. I think you'd learn extremely quickly how to be around, how to deal with girls. Just like if I wanted to become a really good real estate agent, being around top tier killer real estate agents would be able to help me. Being around girls, they're not going to teach you how to pick up girls, but what they are going to do is they're going to make you numb to the idea of like, oh, this super attractive girl wants my attention, therefore I'm going to change my behavior. I don't change my behavior anywhere. One of my best friends is Kindly Myers, and another one of my good friends is Rollo Tomasi. When I see Rollo, it's like, what up, motherfucker? When I see Kindly Myers, I'm like, what up, motherfucker? It's the same, because I'm immersed and I'm around so many beautiful women. But here's the other thing. You mentioned before you just want to give accurate information, but I'm just curious, like, have you read Dr. Buss's works? Have you read
works? I know who he is. I have not read it.
Yeah. I mean, but like, so the things that we're postulating on, there's actual studies on these. I think you would be fascinated if you took some time to read Jeffrey Wilson, Steven Pinker, Gad Saad, David Buss. If you read their work, a lot of these questions we have about sluts and all this kind of stuff, there's actual scientific proof that we're talking about sample sizes of 100,000 people, like surveys that took tens of years to conduct. They're incredibly expensive and thorough. And they answer the questions that we're having. If we just stuck with the evidence-based approach, a lot of these arguments would just go away. My channel is 100% based on evidence. What you did is you said, hey, the guy should go on lots of dates and he should do 1,000 cold approaches. That's a prescription. That is prescription. That's not a description. That's a prescription for what they do. By the way, I don't disagree with your prescription. Guys wants to do 1,000 cold approaches. That can certainly help them. What I don't want them to do is do 1,000 cold approaches. And then when I'm saying, hey man, let's figure out a way to get all these girls on stage at this nightclub, they're like, no, I don't want to do that because I want to do 1,000 cold approaches. That's what I disagree with. I think you should work on all parts of your game.
Okay, so here's the problem. A lot of guys nowadays are coming to the manosphere. They start getting all this information. Some of it's not accurate, right? Some of it's not accurate. We just established that. And then they start getting all this information and they're not applying it. And some of them are applying it wrong. So my thing is, if you teach a guy how to code approach, he can go do the actual real life, boots on the ground type stuff. And then he can sit there and tweak it. And okay, I'm going to read this book, Rational Male, all these different books. Okay, I don't think I agree with this. I don't agree with that.
Hold on. Can I say something real quick? The Rational Male is a book by Rollo Tomasi. Yeah. The books by Dr. Buss are books by PhDs that have nothing to do with the manosphere. I am recommending you read The Rational Male, but additionally, I'm recommending that you read books specifically on the concept of evolutionary psychology. It is a science, a hard science of evolutionary psychology. So there's a difference. I just want to make sure we illuminate that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. All the different interviews, all the different calls that Kevin Samuels took in, could that be PhD white papers?
Could you? So it would be difficult because what you'd have to do. So what you'd have there is a self-selection bias. And the other problem with those is that there's no anonymity. So what you generally get, women are not going to lie about their body count when there's an anonymous factor to it. Does that make sense? So because they're on YouTube, what you're going to find instead, by the way, I do agree. I think that Kevin Samuels is a genius. But what I'm saying is that is not how you do a scientific survey. For a survey, you would need to use like anonymous reporting. Generally, that's the way it would work. And you can't do that on YouTube where you can see the girl's face. That's why it would work.
If you had someone, because he's one of the content creators I respect the most and really sad he passed away, if you put Alan Roger Curry against Dr. Buss, you really think Dr. Buss would be in a debate?
Dr. Buss wouldn't even try to debate. It's like Michio Kaku debating Hulk Hogan. It doesn't make any, like, they're arguing two different things. Dr. David Buss is doing evolutionary psychology. He's not teaching you how to bang a bunch of chicks. He's not even teaching you how to get married. He's dealing with the fact that you are a function of natural selection and all of your proclivities are based on a necessity for survival. Higher sexual selection and higher status. Dr. Buss doesn't even really go on Instagram. He doesn't know anything about this. Dr. Buss is an academic. What you're talking about with Alan Roger Curry has been out there in the field. He's got ideas about different things. And I don't disagree with Alan Roger Curry. But and by the way, I don't think Alan Roger Curry would disagree with anything David Buss is saying. But what I'm saying is, the situation is, what Alan Roger Curry was teaching was a thing, and then there's also additional technology over here that also works. He's not wrong. Mode 1 definitely works for some people. What I'm saying is, in my case, where mode 1 might be 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, what I teach is let's build a funnel. Let's use Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and these huge events to funnel a large group of women around us so that we get experience quicker. That's essentially what I'm saying. It's better to play pickup, not with the same 5-on-5 guys all the time, but to go to Rucker Park and play against better competition. That's what I teach in my program. That's the only difference.
Okay, so when it comes to ARC, here's the thing. When I was talking about at least a body count of 30, and that's a baseline, you learn a bunch of stuff by sleeping with women, right? Your instincts go a lot higher.
You definitely can learn a lot of stuff. Yeah, we had Sterling Cooper on, who's a former porn star. He works with Andrew Tate. He came on and he was like, when men are better at sex, it is a sign to women. It's an ultimate sign of pre-selection to women. But that's still pre-selection. That means pre-selection is something that makes women attractive.
Okay.
Like, how many? Sorry, I just want to get a quick check. How many more points do you have? Because I also wrote down a whole bunch of points I want to raise. But
let's do. Hey, why don't we do that? I would love to do that. Go ahead, Knight. Finish yours real quick, and I would love to hear what Alex has to say.
Okay, yeah, I just need 2 minutes. So I would say I learned from sleeping with a lot of women. My instincts pick up right away if she's a slut or not. There's the difference between a intentional slut versus unintentional. So y'all
sure. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of these women, they start racking up their body count, and they had no intention of doing so.
Right? Or they got fooled, or they're like, yeah, for sure. There's such thing as an unintentional slut. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's not super common, but I've definitely seen that before. A girl completely and fully puts her heart and soul into this one relationship, and the dude just up and leaves and ghosts her, and then she ends up catching another body. That definitely happens sometimes. Yes.
And I would say once the guy has slept with enough women, and this is just kind of a little unique to my ideology. You can sit there, once you get to a level and you can sit there and put together a nice little pie chart of the reason why a woman's dealing with you, you're at most women are never going to be at. So, okay, 30, 40%, 50% of the reason she's with me, looks, status, money, career, 20, 30%. Personality, character, she likes who I am as a person, maybe 10, 20%. That's really, really extremely complicated to do something like that. But once you have a guy that's able to do something like that, and he's able to know that the woman has strong sexual attraction, he'll protect himself over the long run. Because the reality is, in my opinion, the most submissive act a woman could do is get under a man and have sex with him. And the reason that's the most submissive act that a woman could do is because there's a potential to create another human being that's going to be on this earth.
Sure. Yeah.
She's putting herself at risk. That's what I would say. So that's my thoughts on that. I'll let Alex.
Alex, what do you think? I think bringing home another woman would be even more submissive, but I don't know. Do you agree with that? I don't know. What do you think?
What was the question?
He said the most submissive thing a woman can do is being underneath a man. And I think bringing home another woman would be a little bit more submissive. But yeah, I generally agree with your point. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. What would be the most significant? Probably bringing home another woman and then putting on like a collar and getting on her knees and saying, "Fuck me down."
That would be a little bit more submissive. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wrote down some notes as you guys were having a discussion. I have one little point for you, Knight, and then I have a few for Michael. Let's start off with you, Michael. So this is going to be more of a question. So one thing I've heard from a lot of guys who do social circle game is that a lot of guys who try to do social circle game fuck it up because they start knocking on the girls too hard and they become a little too aggressive. So my question is, are you saying that girls will straight up basically take the role of like the guy and escalate on you if you just chill out?
No, so there's numerous, so just think of a normal distribution. There's numerous different possibilities on the distribution, right? So you might have 5% of women who are super aggressive and 5% of women that are just like, they just don't sleep with anybody. And then there's this middle group of women that are like in that 4 body range or whatever. So what I recommend to guys, I have them read the setup by Dan Bilzerian. In chapter 2, he says, go talk to lots of women, but don't hit on any of them. What you do is you're almost like collecting them for this big group. What happens is what you're talking about, Alex, is a serious problem that I try to help these guys with. I say for the first 6 months, just try to get as many females to come to your events, to message you on social media, to interact with you, to do your competitions or to come to your photo shoots or whatever, to come to your container events. Get that number up. But the thing is, once you get to 100, then you're good. The problem is nobody ever gets to 100, Alex, because they're already sleeping with them before they get to 20. When you get to that point, there's just this weird thing that happens where you have to think of, like, for a woman to have sex with a man, there's like steps you have to go through. One of them is, depending on who you ask, what did Mr. used to say, attraction and comfort, whatever. There's just different steps for her seduction process. Use whatever words you want. That first part of the seduction process for attraction, that is solved already because there were so many other women that co-signed for you. Does that make sense? Just like you see a billboard up on the street, it says, for some car salesman or whatever. It's like billions sold or what I don't just whatever advertisement. It's the same thing. Pre-selection works for human beings. Women, when they see a woman that they admire hanging out with you, touching you, being close to you, and then also showing compliance, there's a bunch of questions that she has that she doesn't ask anymore. And her steps towards attraction and eventually sleeping with you are cut in half. Does that make sense? The seduction process is cut in half, and sometimes more than in half. Sometimes it's almost instant because when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, so is it fair to say that the vibe you're going to have when it comes to social circle game is going to be different than cold approach? With cold approach, like, you don't have the luxury of just leaning back. Like, now you have to actually make things happen. You have to move things forward. You have to be the one. So would it be fair to say with the social circle game, you might not do that nearly as much? You're going to be much more laid back and kind of.
Yeah, not only am I more laid back, if I wasn't laid back, it would actually make things. You can go mode one with a bunch of girls that you invited to a party, but you can only do it once. Because some of them, what'll happen is, girls, let's say there's 8 girls, 1 and 2 and 3 are totally vibing with you. And then 4 and 5 are neutral. But what happens is 5, 6, 7, and 8, they go and say, I did not have a good experience. He was a little bit too aggressive. And so I'm not going to recommend to my friends to come to any more of his further parties. Whereas rule number 6 in MOA is nobody needs to know who you're fucking. What you would do is you would go out with all 8, and at the end of the night, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 would go home, and 1 and 2 would, oh yeah, girls, I'll come, and they stay behind, and then they go watch movies with you in your bedroom. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because they're not judged by the other 6. So that's the kind of the way it works in those type of situations. But you're laid back the whole time. What you do, like, this is really hard for a lot of guys to understand. And this is what pickup gets wrong and cold approach gets wrong. Women do not sleep with you because of your intent. They sleep with you because of your status. And what pickup tries to do is they try to create fake status with words to try to make up for the fact that these guys don't have status. If you consistently put yourself in high status situations, you don't even get the ability to do cold approach. If I took you, Alex, to the Playboy Mansion, you wouldn't do cold approach. Every girl there is so fucking nice to you because you're in the Playboy Mansion. If I took you on sky deck at Electric Daisy Carnival, every girl that, like, you're sitting there you're standing next to Paris Hilton, and over here is like, whoever, fucking Machine Gun Kelly or Elon Musk or whatever. There's no cold approach. Everyone there assumes everyone else there is so insanely high status that it's just everything opens. It's not like going to Bungalow in Santa Monica and like trying to cold approach a bunch of girls. It's very different. Does that make sense? Or going out in Wynwood, right? It's very different where everyone assumes your status based on where you are and who you're aligned with. And so that's the reason why it's so important to do this. But additionally, like, as far as whatever he says, if I agree or disagree, the fact of the matter is what I do is it's multiplicative of what he's saying. Whatever he's saying do with 5, 10, 15, 20 girls, I'm doing with 5,000. That's why we get through this faster. That's my point. That's always going to be my point. The scalability, it's the mom and pop store versus Amazon.com. The scalability is always going to win. That's why social circle eventually works. The cold approach is arithmetic. It's 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. Social circle is geometric. It's not exponential. It's geometric. It's 2 and then 8 and then 64, and it's geometric. That's the reason why it works so well.
Got it. So I kind of take a middle position between the debate you guys are having. I can see both of your points. I will say this. I've had small tastes of social circle game, and it led to me banging some of the hottest girls I've ever banged. Like, both times where I was like in a situation where I met a girl through a mutual friend, through an event.
That's extremely
common. The girls were typically hotter, and it was a lot easier. So I understand where you're coming from. However, this is kind of what my, I guess, concern or objection would be. I think social circle game is great, but I think a big percentage of guys aren't in a place to pull it off. At least, like, not currently where they're at. Like, we're building social media, right? Like, I've been a public speaker. I've had a bunch of photographers take photos of me for free. I've traveled the world. I am definitely in a position to have a dope-ass social media. There's no excuse for me not to have a good Instagram. But a lot of the guys I coach, they literally wake up, go to work, and then they eat dinner and they go to bed. Their life is not that exciting. They work all the time. Maybe they take care of their mom, right? They don't really travel. They don't even have a passport, right? How would those guys be able to do kind of what you do or what I do?
So let's talk about that, the prescription and the description. So what you're talking about is a prescription. How do I get normal, boring guys to not be normal and boring? That's a prescription. What's the description? What you're saying before. These guys, you're having success. You had sex with beautiful women when you did Social Circle. The reality of the situation is if you think that most men can't do this, you're correct. They can't. The reason, so what you have to do is you have to make the decision, I'm going to move up that ladder. If your decision is, Michael, I want to stay in my mom's basement. I want to do cold approach once a week. I'm not going to upgrade my life, my fitness, my anything. I'm not going to read these books. I'm not going to become more charismatic. I'm not going to learn how to break rapport. I'm not going to learn the skills for entrepreneurship. I'm not going to learn any of this shit. How to be skills of persuasion. I'm not going to learn any of it. And I want to get hotter women. My answer is, sorry, it's not going to work for you. The reality of the situation is when I say 33% of men are having zero sexual partners, I don't have a solution for that. What I have a solution for is get out of that 33% of men and then try to become one of these higher status men. And I have gone through and backward reverse engineered these higher status men and said, what do these men have in common? And when I look at what they have in common, it is so clearly and plainly obvious what these things are. It is access to like large groups of women, access to high status people, access to high status events, and some presence. It doesn't have to be social media. So for instance, like Brad Pitt has a presence that shows that he's high status without social media. Same thing with Tom Brady. But like for the majority of us, because we're not that famous, we're going to have to use social media in order to show that status to get in that area. If you think you can't do it, you're right, you can't. I'm not here to save everyone. I'm Noah's Ark, bro. I am not here to change the world. I am here to take a select group of men who are willing to do anything and everything they can to change their life, to get into the lifestyle that I'm showing. By the way, those pictures I was showing you, those aren't from years ago. That's like yesterday I was taking that shit. That want this lifestyle. You're willing to do anything short of fucking death to get this. Those are the guys I take. And the guys who don't want to do that, if you don't think you can do this, you're correct. You can't.
Okay, guys.
I don't have a prescription for the world.
Yeah. So if you're basically thesis is that, hey, this is not going to work for every guy. It's going to work for a small percent. Like I have no disagreement with you. Like I agree with you.
Yeah, but hold on. I'm going to make one more really important point here.
Yeah.
So you listen, man. I know you and Rollo have had some issues. I like you, dude. Can you share my screen again? Can you share my screen?
Sure. There you go.
Okay. You're going to come to Vegas, so hopefully sometime this summer. I host the biggest bikini competition in the world. Alex, you're my boy, so you don't have to worry about meeting girls. I got you. Do you understand that part of Social Circle also?
Yeah, for sure.
Most of my guy friends meet their girlfriends through me. A lot of my friends get their job through me. The Social Circle is not just about dating, bro. It's about everything. Like when some people were like, Rollo doesn't have to worry about getting into clubs in Vegas. You want to know why? Because he's my friend. Rollo can get into any club Rollo can get into any club in Los Angeles because he's my friend. Because he's in my fucking tribe. Because he's my boy.
To give you a little bit of pushback on that, so right, but the thing is you're not going to be friends with most guys because most guys are losers, right? So I'm sure you get a whole bunch of dudes who DM you on Instagram saying
all the time.
Hey, Michael, crazy. I really want to, I love that chick in the photo of 3 to the left. Can you take me out? And like, I'm assuming you don't have time to like bring out a whole bunch of random dudes. You're probably very selective about who you're friends with.
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of how I am too. Like you and I would have never met if I didn't have, social media platform. I didn't have YouTube. We live in different cities. There would just been like no chance that you and I would be friends. So yes, I do like the idea of having high value friends. I just think that typically high value people aren't really going to hang out with someone who's low value.
Okay, so then the trick is to become high value. Do you understand?
Right.
Like Alex, let me ask you something. Alex, do you believe that if you come to Vegas, I would set you up with beautiful women anytime?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%.
So you believe, you even know that to be true. Like that is the ultimate irrefutable proof that what I'm saying works. Like you would have access to more beautiful women than ever. So it's not just for me. It's not just because I host this is Paradise Challenge. It's not just because I host Paradise Challenge. It's because of all of it together. That's what makes this whole thing work. Now my screen.
So I know it's not just for you. I have more than my fair share of friends who've done Social Circle game and they report good results, right? So I know it works for other people. I've seen it with my eyes, right? I've experienced it myself to some small extent. But again, my friends are generally people who are, I don't know, like I say, like super high value, but they're people who travel a lot. They have flexible jobs. They make a decent amount of money. They're pretty good with girls, right? Like I'm not friends with the average person. I coach the average person all the time, but I'm not friends with the average person.
I agree with you. So don't be average. Like if you want me to tell you how do I make average people cool, I can't.
Okay, I got you.
Right?
Okay.
I'm not there. I have no prescription to save the world. I have prescription to save the fucking Navy SEALs of this shit.
Okay.
The special forces, the fucking guys willing to storm Normandy, the bad motherfuckers. Those are the ones that I want. The rest of you, I'm sorry. I can't help all of you. I will help the bad motherfuckers. Those are the ones I'm going to help.
Okay, so then we don't have any disagreement. I agree with you.
No,
on that.
absolutely not. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so here's another thing. So as you know, I do speed dates on my channel, which involves me constantly recruiting girls.
Great.
My Instagram, I think, is significantly better than the average guy. I have a decent amount of clout. And even for me, it is a grind to consistently get good-looking girls on the speed date. I have an assistant whose literally full-time job it is just to go through my Instagram and just DM girls all day. Right. And sometimes we even have it can become a grind. It's a massive amount of work. So I guess my question is for a guy who doesn't have clout, who doesn't have a value proposition, hey, come on my YouTube channel, you get these many subscribers. Like, how are they going to consistently meet? I know you can do it from time to time, but consistently meet a big group of girls to get them to social events just from Instagram cold DMs, or unless I'm missing some part of the process.
So you want help specifically for your show? The best thing I would do is a girl needs to be doing that for you. You need to have when high status women are the ones doing the pitching, the acceptance rate is so much higher. You have to understand, dude, remember, they're women, they're smaller than us. They have a lot more to lose with having sex with the wrong person. They have a lot more to lose with going into the wrong social situation and getting caught up with the wrong dude. Having an attractive woman that they align with saying, hey, come on Alex's show, you're 10 times more likely to get more girls to come on your show. But that's what I do. If you're wondering how I get those girls on Access Vegas, that's how I do it. It is women leading to other women. Pre-selection, mate choice copying, based in science.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, that kind of goes along with what Andrew Tate talks about, how he's not the one that actually recruited the girls for the webcam thing. He had a girl that was doing most of the work. So, okay, I feel you on that. And that's actually an interesting suggestion. Maybe I'll have my girlfriend start DMing girls. Those are really the only 2 points I have for you. The one point I have for you, Knight, you mentioned that when you go on a date with a girl, typically you don't tell her her name. Like, what is the purpose of that? Like, why not tell her your name? Like, what's the issue?
Well, that's not what I said. What I said is some women that I've slept with, they didn't even care to learn my name because they were so sexually attracted to me. So whether it was a one-night stand or it was a woman that she came over to hang out, right, to my house, my apartment, my dorm, wherever I was living at the time, she was so sexually attracted to me, she just didn't care. That's what I mean. And it goes back to the whole concept of the building blocks code approach being part of it, to have the instincts in the future. If you want to settle down, if you want to move a woman into your house, right? Cohabitation, all that other junk. That's one of the things that you pick up over a long period of time when you've dealt with so many women. And that's kind of the point I've tried to get across. You got to deal with women in different situations, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different kind of dates. One time, here's a good example. A woman brought along her friend, right? And I didn't know she was going to bring her friend along on the date. Now, because I had the experience, I'm going to tell the guys out there what I did. It worked for me. Maybe you don't agree with the logic of what I did. But what I did is I was like, okay, well, let's go get some drinks. I was a little surprised. I was like, okay, the experience factor. Because you hear the stupid thing in the manosphere. Oh, well, she's using you for a foodie date. Would you rather be used for $30, $40 now, or get screwed in the future, $200,000 divorce, RAPE, because you didn't understand women, because you didn't have experience? So what I did with these 2 females is I bought some drinks for one, I bought some drinks for the other one, I bought some drinks for myself. I don't know, 6 drinks total. And this is what I did. I closed the tab and I said, hey, you guys have a good night. Now, the girl that I was talking to, she hits me up 30 minutes later, like, hey, we're having a good time. Why did you leave? I was like, well, we're supposed to go on a date. I don't know why you brought your friend along. She's like, well, I'll go drop her off and we can hang out. We went back to the same place. We had drinks back and forth, 2 drinks, 3 drinks, whatever. And then she came back to my place and we had sex. Those type of experiences really matter. And that's the whole thing about code approach. What a lot of people don't get, I mean, it's not so much, for a lot of guys, they think it's all about getting laid all the time. No, you use that information to protect yourself in the future. I'm not paying child support. I've never been in a divorce court. I don't have a bunch of different baby mamas. No offense to the people out there. And that's the stuff that matters. No disrespect to anyone out there.
Yeah, you're a nicer guy than me. If some chick showed up with her friend on a date without telling me, I would just be like, see you later. Have a good night. Okay, so I want to see if I can bridge the gap a little bit. So, Knight, you've said in the past that you think women, looks is what drives women in. Looks is the foundation of attraction, and then you build on that, right? But it has
it's on a night. That's what you said,
Michael, you said it is status. Don't you guys think it's a little bit of a combination of those things? It's look, status, your vibe, your game, right? Don't you think the truth is somewhere in the middle?
So what? Let's do this. This is status up here, and then under the subset of status is money, game, looks, physique, like all these different things. Just think of like a player on Madden who has like strength, speed, agility, all these different things that make the player a 99 overall. That's what status is. It's each one of those things. A man can be Sam Asghari, who's married to Britney Spears. I know the guy. He fucking is incredibly good looking, dude. When you see him in person, you're like, Jesus Christ, this dude's good looking. That he gained his status from being good looking. So in his case, status was accrued because of his looks. In other cases, like some guy who's super wealthy, that's where he gets his status. Another guy who like Dave Chappelle is very funny. Dave Chappelle is very rich, but he's attractive because he's funny. Does that make sense? Sometimes there's different ways to accrue the status. Also being a great athlete, yes, they're also happen to be wealthy, but women like them because they're the center of attention. So all of these things. So what I would say is, let's say there's 20 different things that lead to status. One of them would be looks.
Okay. So you're using the word status fairly loosely. Okay, got it.
Correct. Because look it up in the dictionary. It has so many things that lifts the tide of the boat. Some guys literally could be just wealthy enough to just physically brute force their way into status just through money. They bought the big house. They have huge parties in the Hamptons. They have no fucking personality. They're like a tech billionaire. Some guys can brute force their way into status just with money. And some guys are super like male strippers who live in Vegas. They can brute force their way into status just from their attraction. But what I prefer is for a guy to have all of these things set.
I do agree with you. Status is probably the most influential thing in driving attraction. Like if me and Jonah Hill go to a bar, I am better looking than him. I have better game than him. I'm sure he will beat me, right? Because he just has.
Of course. So you understand, right? But let's take it one step further. If you and Jonah Hill try to get in front of a venture capitalist, who would get in front of him first?
Him, obviously.
If you and Jonah Hill try to take a company public, who would be able to do that first?
Of course, yeah.
So it's not just status for women. It's just status. Period. That's the point I make. That is the overall overarching point of Men of Action. Status is status is status. And so the idea that we're just having one section of the status debate dealing with male-female interaction, it's the whole fucking pie. That's the part that's so important.
Okay, got it. So Knight, where do you stand on that?
My thing is, it's always been my mindset. I'll do whatever it takes to find out if a woman has strong sexual attraction towards me. And then all that other stuff can come. Obviously, that can't be hidden all the time. You know, if I'm dressed really well, the way I'm dressed right now, some women, they'll pick up on, oh, this guy is well-spoken. Okay, he might have some education. He might come from blue blood family, that type of stuff. So the way I see it is the sexual attraction comes first, and no exceptions. You only provide provision for a woman that's strongly sexually attracted to you. No exceptions.
Status can cause sexual attraction. That's the thing. Status is quite different than money. So money can't really on its own cause a strong sexual attraction. It can get a girl to fuck you because she wants something. Status is different. Like status will actually trigger girls' like attraction instincts. There's nothing hotter for a woman than a man who has status. And this is through, the way we evolved, because back in the caveman times, obviously status meant that you protect your children, blah, blah, blah. So I think status and money are like not even the same route. Like status is so much of a stronger force.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Well, depending on the woman, there's some women that put intelligence way up there, and that's part of sexual attraction as well. Charisma, okay, like you said, status. There could be a bunch of different things. And what I would tell guys is, you do whatever it takes to find the women that want you for the reasons you want them to want you for. So if you want a woman to really value you because of intelligence or charisma, or I don't know, because you're a director at an oil and gas company, okay, go find those women that really respect that. Now, the problem is a lot of guys would have a hard time sussing that out to find out a woman's true motivations and wanting to deal with them. Call it red pill, call it distrustful women, call it misogynistic. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I think one thing that all three of us agree on is that you shouldn't lead with money. And there's a lot of red pill content creators who believe that money should be part of the bargain, right? Meaning like, yeah, of course you're going to use your resources to attract the girl. But I think all three of us agree that that is a very, very foolish strategy and not something that's going to lead to a good long-term outcome. But yeah, okay, Michael, let's move on to the, you said you want to ask me some questions about the Rolo thing.
Oh, I mean, no, let's make sure we're done here. Is there anything else we want to talk about here?
Knight?
You good? Can you hear me?
Nah, I think one thing I would say is, like you were saying earlier, I guess when it comes to the social circle game, I respect Michael for saying that there's only a small percentage of men that are ready to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, some guys, I don't know if they filter these guys out, but I would say there's probably some guys that y'all filter out that have just atrocious social skills, and there's just no way they're going to be able to deal with a room of beautiful models. Would you agree with that?
It's over time, man. I'm telling you, the human body, I want you to think about how disastrously horrible human existence was for the first 200,000 years that humans were on this planet. Living outside, surviving, teeth falling out, dying at the age of 20. Humans are incredibly durable. If you put a man in a situation where you make him used to something, even torture, you even like guys who were tortured back in Vietnam, they got used to it after a while. You can take any guy, and if you consistently put him around attractive women long enough, he will become used to it because he's part of a species that is durable. He's part of a species that is psychologically strong, mentally tough. That's the reason there's 8 billion humans on this planet. I do think any guy can learn this. I do.
I agree, but I guess the timeline is what I would disagree with.
Hey, listen, if you're in LA tomorrow, I'll bring you to the Maxim party. I'll introduce you to 500 girls. You think I'm kidding? Like it's not that the timeline is very quick. The timeline is very quick. Hey, can you do one more screen share? Because I want to do this real quick. Since he's an Aggie. I just thought you'd like this. So all the girls, they tried to wear burnt orange, but they couldn't. Knight, do you want to take a guess why all these girls showed up to my birthday in burnt orange?
Because they know you went to UT?
That's correct. So one of the things that one of the guys was in there saying, I paid all these girls. These girls all showed up because they love me, because they're my friends, and because I've dated a bunch of them. That's why they showed up. They showed up wearing burnt orange. That's essentially what happened. So I'm like, I know you guys, there's a bunch of guys in the chat who are like, they're trying to figure out some way none of this is real. No, dude, we build teams of huge groups of people that we work together in order to create these amazing events so you can meet the girl of your dreams or the 10 girl of your dreams. What you're saying before about the other stuff, it's great. But the difference is what I'm doing is so scalable. That's the reason why it works so well. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. It's the scalability. It's the scalability function of the whole thing that makes it just so devastating. And one other thing, like this is another thing I wanted to show before we left. Where's it at? Sorry.
Michael, bring in the receipts.
How much would a guy pay for the program? Say they wanted to do it for a month. How much would they cost them?
It's not a month. We do 6 months at a time. You'd have to go and ask the guys. I don't expose that over here. You have to set up a call to do it. But this is the last the last charity event that we did. It was a toy drive. I invited all of these girls to come to this. And where's the last one I wanted to show you? Oh yeah, this is one. This is the one that meant the most to me. Like honestly, out of all of them, this is the one that was the most important. Last October, all these girls, because they know I love basketball, they all showed up as cheerleaders. They all showed up as cheerleaders for me. Do you want to know who planned this? Not me. One of my good friends, she runs a modeling agency. She planned this out for me. We paid nothing. They gave us a $3,000 dinner comped. And then afterwards, we all went into the club. And while we're in the club, the entire thing, all the girls' drinks were comped. Everything was comped. And then the top attorney in the entire city, Steve Demopoulos, bought us the biggest suite inside of Resorts World for $15K. And all of us got to go in there and party. And this cost me $0.
Michael, random question. Have you ever thought about doing an OnlyFans? Like you have a connection with all these girls. You could probably make insane amounts of money doing that.
I didn't hear your question. I didn't hear your question. Sorry. I didn't hear your question.
We can move on. I won't press it. Did you have anything else, Bishop, you want to bring up?
Nope.
All right, cool. So let's crack into the role thing. I was trying to, out of respect, every time you would talk about him, I try not to roll my eyes or anything like that. But yeah. I'll answer any questions you have, honestly.
So obviously, I personally, when you called into Fresh and Fit, I wanted you guys to keep going. I wish there was not so much acrimony. I would just like to deal with this on a strictly logical level. What are your issues specifically with him? And can I bring forth a hypothesis first? Okay, just something to consider. People that you were associated with previously. I'll just give you an example of my personal life. I used to work with an event planning company, and this event planning company told me person A and person B don't ever associate with them. So I thought person A and person B were pieces of shit my whole time. Then when I stopped working with that event planning company, because they kind of screwed me over. I still thought person A and person B were pieces of shit. And then I got to know them. And guess what, Alex? They weren't pieces of shit. I was being lied to by somebody previously. You had a previous relationship with a guy that you're not in that relationship with anymore. Is there any possibility that these previous relationships with these guys that you were associated with could have anything to do with your feelings towards Rollo?
You might not believe me, but the answer is no. All my feelings about Rollo and my thoughts about him have to do with my experiences with him and me reading his work. So in terms of issues, I think probably one of my bigger ones is that I think he's a hypocrite. And I personally don't like hypocrites. The reason I say he's a hypocrite, probably one of the biggest things, is in his book, and yes, I am familiar with his work, he says debate is how you get to the truth. You should always debate people who think differently than you, he says in his live streams. But yet he has run away from every single serious debate. And we're not talking just about with me. We're talking about with Destiny. We're talking about with a whole bunch of people. So when I see something like that, and like, look, for someone like you, Michael, if you didn't want to do a debate, I wouldn't press the issue because you don't LARP around and say, oh, my name is Michael, I debate everyone, right? So I think it's okay for people not want to do debates. But when your whole thing is you should debate people who think differently than you, and you run away from debates, especially when I've been more than accommodating, like I offered Top Value Tainment hosted, right? So it was like, and he just still runs away from it. And that's, I'm like, okay, something's up.
Okay. So can I propose a reason why this is? I'm just going to talk about your case specifically because I happen to know the reason. You were very closely associated with someone who doxed his family member.
Are you talking about Anthony Johnson or?
You were very closely associated with someone who legitimately doxed one of his family members. I'm not going to go further by like redoxing the person. We can talk offline. That would be a reason for me to not want to debate you if you had done. Now you didn't do it, but you were very closely aligned with the person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think also
hold on, but can you at least understand? Like you and I don't have a daughter. Can you at least understand how maybe that would set somebody off in a bad path if you doxed someone's family member?
Yeah, for sure. But just to clarify on that, the person you're talking about, I was actually never closely associated with him. I spoke at his conference once.
No, not him. The other one.
Oh,
yeah,
Sean. Really? He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna go deep into that. But you can understand, right? Like if you get into a hit and run and you kill someone's family member, and later on you go to their house and you're like, hey, I want to come over for Christmas. If they don't invite you in for Christmas, you understand why, right? Like sometimes
I get it.
I don't even think it's your fault, which goes back to my original point. I do think, Alex, respectfully, you were dragged into a really bad end of the pool by some really shitty people who which caused you to create acrimonious relationships that you kind of can't come back from. Does that make sense? And I'm trying to help you come back from them so that we can have these debates, which I want you to have. Does that make sense?
Well, first of all, the obstacle to having a debate isn't me. I'm 100% down. Anytime, any place. I'm
right, but the obstacle was because you were associated with people who have cluster B personality disorders. Do you understand?
Yeah. So I'm honestly not a big fan of the guilty by association argument. Like, for example, I would never call you a hypocrite because you're friends with Rollo. Like, you're your own man. He's his own man. So any negative feelings I have about Rollo, I would never in a million years put them on you. So yes, he has, I'm not sure what that person did, but I'm sure you're right. They have some bad blood, but that has nothing to do with me. I've never doxed anyone once in my life. I have a really good track record of being very genuine, authentic, and good faith, right? So I don't see how the fact that someone that I used to be friends with did something shitty to him has anything to do with me.
So your association externally seemed probably a lot closer than it did probably for you internally. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like for those of us out here, we all thought you guys were just boys. Does that make sense? Yeah. I agree with you about the guilt by association, but if someone didn't want me to come on their podcast because they really didn't like Rollo, I would totally understand that because of my association with it. So I get it, even though I might not fully agree with it also. Here's the second thing. When you went on Fresh and Fit and you called on, I wanted you to state, can you talk about specifically, let's forget Rollo exists. Let's just say Rollo's ideology or what's in the rational male, and then what you believe. Can you talk about what you specifically, because we never got to those points. What are the specific things in there that you disagree with? Maybe did you read the whole book?
I've read very detailed summaries of the book.
Okay. I recommend you should read the book. It's Frank Batta, or the guy who does the audio version. He's pretty good. Anyway, go ahead.
You're asking me what specific ideological disagreements I have with his work, not so much him. So yeah, I've done many videos on this. Off the top of my head, there's several. There's Iron Rule number. Here, let me just fact check myself and pull up the rules.
Okay.
Rollo Tomassi. Iron rules. Tomassi. Iron rules. Okay. We'll go through this together. Okay, there we go. So, okay. Iron rule number 2. Iron rule number 4.
Can you read them out, man? I honestly, like, he's my buddy, and I read the book in 2013 when it came out. I'm on book 5 now. I don't.
Yeah, I got you. Never under the pain of death, honestly or dishonestly reveal the number of women you've slept with or explain any detail of your sexual experiences with them to a current lover. So yeah, like I think that, I mean, if you want to get into the reasons why I think that's wrong, but I think that's fundamentally silly. Every single girl I've ever been in a relationship with, I've told her, you know, what my sexual situations were. It's a point of bonding. I think that actually being vulnerable and opening up is going to build more intimacy rather than like trying to keep it a secret, in which case it gets worse. So yeah, that one just fundamentally.
So what I think is wrong. So one of the problems with when you go back and read The Rational Male, is a lot of it is done in a way to where he's speaking to a lower status man who's either been divorced. Remember, he had a brother-in-law who committed suicide. I don't know if you're aware of this. He had a close family member committed suicide, which caused him to want to write the book in the first place. In these situations, when he's saying that, for instance, like, you remember the old pickup thing, don't ever buy a girl a drink? No, what it actually meant was, don't buy a girl a drink if you're using the drink as a crutch to keep the conversation going. If a girl likes me and like we've gone on several dates and she's all over me, I'll buy her a fucking drink. I don't care. But what we do is we looked at these things as sort of black and white. So when he says never under pain of death, what I think he's saying, what I believe he's saying, because I should ask him about this specifically, is that when you are not in the sexual attraction phase of the relationship with a girl, you should not be so vulnerable and tell her how many women you slept with, because she's only going to hold it against you. Is that correct 100% of the time? I'd say it's correct about 86 to maybe 95% of the time, because they will hold it against you. I don't ever tell women how many other women I slept with, unless I am dating a bisexual woman and we're sleeping with women together. Then I do. Because in that case, it's an academic or it's a necessity. But what he's saying is, when you do that, on balance, it's better for you to not be as vulnerable up front. So just consider this. A homeless person comes up to you when you're walking into a grocery store, and he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know, I've been just going through some rough times and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I just, blah, 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 just starts giving you his life story. You're like, dude, get away from me. Why are you coming up and talking to me? Whereas like if Brad Pitt or Elon Musk comes up to you like, hey man, I just want to tell you about these problems I'm going through. You'd be like, oh, what? Elon Musk is talking to me. You cannot just, here's what I think he's kind of saying here. You cannot give value until you have value. Does that make sense? I think it's perfectly fine to be vulnerable. Just don't lead with it. Lead with status and attraction. Then when the girl is fucking down for you, genuine attraction, you can tell her whatever. Right? Because Rollo's been open and said how many women he slept with before he got married. He said that, and obviously his wife knows. So that, like, it's not, when he's saying that, I think he's saying remember, his audience, when he's writing these books, are frustrated men. They're not you and I. Dude, you live in fucking Brickell, bro. There's hot women everywhere. He's not speaking to you specifically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if this iron rule was generally, it's not a good idea to tell a girl about your body count until you start dating her, then I have no issue. But this is
Alex, remember,
never under the pain of
Alex, remember, he's not Rollo Tomassi when he writes this book. He's a guy writing things down on a blog. He's Rollo Tomassi. Back then, he's just a dude. Like when you read the first Game of Thrones novel and you read like what George R. R. Martin is writing, George R. R. Martin is not famous back then. He's just a dude writing a book in 1992. Rollo is writing a book in 2013. He's said other things in subsequent books. So to like hold him specifically to this one thing, like, if you do that, then like, I'm not saying what I'm saying is it's not right or wrong. It's just hyperbole. And he's using hyperbole because he's a first-time author, dude. This is his first time writing a book.
It's not just one thing though. I'm just starting with this.
So let's go to another thing. Let's go to another thing.
Never under any circumstance live with a woman you aren't married to or not planning to marry within 6 months. I think it's literally the opposite. Never marry a woman you haven't lived with for at least 6 months. You're going to marry a woman, which is the most strongest commitment ever, that you haven't lived with. 100%. I would never marry a woman I didn't live with for like at least a year. You really don't get to know someone until you live with them.
So just so you can make his argument for him, why do you think he wrote that? And by the way, I agree with the whole idea of never. I would say on balance or in general. But like, why do you think he would say that?
I'm honestly not sure, man.
So the reason why you would say that is because in some of these situations, some of the genuine desire that you would need, it kind of goes away before you get married. That would be one of the reasons why. Now, in your estimation and in your experience, that hasn't been the case. But like this iron rule is not something for me to hate somebody over. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just one thing that he believes in general as a prescription of something to do. I was thinking, like, when I met Rollo, I had so many questions when I first met Rollo, because there was so many things I wanted to ask. Because
You kind of broke up. Say that again.
Can you hear me? Like, yeah. Do you understand? Like, I'm the guy teaching guys to be friends with girls, bro. Like, that's me. Do you know Rich Cooper and Rollo Tomasi are not teaching people that? Neither is Myron Gaines. Like, but we're still cool. You know who, like, we're still cool. Like, it's one of these things where these iron rules are things he wrote in a book 10 years ago. And again, he starts with the never self-deprecate. I self-deprecate all the time, and somehow we're still friends. What I'm saying is, over time, what these were general things he was writing to a specific audience in 2013, number one. And number two, he wasn't Rollo Tomasi back then. I mean, he was on
I think there's a very important clarification needs to be made. I do not hate Rollo because I disagree with some of his iron rules. I probably agree with Rollo on 60 to 70% of the stuff he teaches. I have people on my channel who I'm friendly with, who I might even be friends with, who disagree on like 90% of stuff. So just because we disagree does not mean I'm going to have any kind of negative feelings towards you. Okay. I wouldn't even say I hate Rollo per se. The reason I dislike Rollo, that's a better word, is one, because I feel like he's a hypocrite. And number two, because he has told lies about me. Multiple lies. He said that I work for Anthony Johnson. Not true. I do not work for the guy. Never been paid for him. Number three, he said that I am killing people because when I criticize his work, that might cause people not to look at his videos, and that is killing people. So it's more. It has nothing to do with the stuff he teaches and everything to do with the lies that he's told about me and the fact that I feel like he's a hypocrite and a coward.
So again, let's go over this thing one more time. Again, somebody doxed his daughter, and he doesn't know for a fact your association with the person you just mentioned before. I'm just trying to save myself a legal bill, dude. He doesn't know whether or not. So I'm going to take your word for it that you weren't working for him, but I don't know that to be the case. And so for him, on balance, you have to understand from his standpoint, he's the one writing these books, and then all of a sudden you're not the guy who threw the rock at him, but you're standing next to him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like again,
just try to have some empathy for a dude who has a kid and you don't. Just try. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I do have some empathy for the guy. Like, I have personally never attacked his kid, never attacked his wife.
I know you didn't, which is why I'm on your show.
With that person we're talking about, I publicly condemned him when he doxed Wheat Waffles. I was extremely clear about that privately and publicly. So I'm not in any way defending doxing. But this would be kind of like, okay, you told me, like, can I share? I don't know if I can share the story. Are you cool with me sharing a story that you told me privately?
Which one? When we were leaving the place?
About Luke?
I would probably. There's still.
Okay, let me try
that. You use a different name, maybe.
Yeah. Let me try to do it this way. Yeah. So there's a guy that you used to work with, right? Who you told me, was a very bad actor, that he ripped off people, blah blah. I personally do not think you're in any way responsible for that, and I think it would be fundamentally unfair for me to hold that against you because there's someone who you associate with at one time who's a piece of shit, especially since you're no longer associated with him, which is exactly the same case here. I'm no longer associated with that person. Yeah. So that's why it's really hard for me to have massive amounts of empathy for this argument, because it's not a fair argument. I do not believe people are guilty for the actions of their friends unless they're directly involved in it. And it sounds like you agree with me on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a moralist, I mean, I'm the one trying to make this happen. So yeah, I mean, totally. So the other thing is there another thing besides, is there another iron rule? Is there something specific? Like is there some really plate shifting thing that you disagree with in the rational male, or that Rollo has said specifically, not dealing with you or Rollo, that you have a problem with?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. One is the hypergamy. I don't think hypergamy is entirely false, but I think that he presents it in a very disgenuine way, where it's like, hey, women are hypergamous. This is a woman thing. In reality, everyone is hypergamous to some extent. Vast majority of men, if a hotter younger girl comes along, they'll probably trade up. And women will do the same thing, but instead of looking at like youth, they typically look at like status and financial. So I think he presents it in a very disgenuine way, where he makes it seem like it's a woman thing. And this goes to the larger issue I have with Rollo, is he creates this us versus them mentality. Talks about the gynocentric female order, and it's very much, it's like, hey, it's kind of like almost like a cult type of technique. Hey, it's us, we're against these women. It creates this adversarial frame, which I think really, really doesn't help anyone. And I think on that, you would also agree with me, because you don't seem like the kind of guy that has an us versus them mentality with women.
I mean, I think it's need to have healthy relationships. I mean, it's good for women. That's what I would say. And all I'm ever said is you got to find the women that want you.
No, I wasn't sorry. I was directing that at Michael. I mean, you can answer it too, but
sorry. Oh, I thought you said night. My bad, bro.
Oh, no. Michael, yeah.
Okay, now go ahead, Mike.
Oh, so when it comes to this whole situation, I think things got out of hand because there was a lack of communication. And I think that's where, this is just my opinion. Rollo, I talked to Rollo right after this and be like, fuck no, I don't agree with anything you're saying. Everything you said on there was, Rollo's his own person and I'm my own person.
Right, I get that.
Right. But, I personally wish that you guys could have a discussion. I'm going to, try to work on it from my end. But the thing you have to understand is that, like, when someone doesn't want to debate me, I don't call them a coward either. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the other problem is Rollo is, you've seen I don't know if you've seen the Access Vegas show we do. Rollo has a great relationship. Those girls fucking love him afterwards. All the girls on the show write him afterwards. He hangs out, like they hang out with him. Rollo does really well with women, but because this is one problem I've had, no disrespect to DJ Academics, but this idea, because Rollo's been married for 26 years, that's a feature, not a bug. I hope to God, I don't know Rollo's wife well or whatever, but I hope to God I have a relationship like that someday. And if I do, I'm going to look to him for advice, for him to have a healthy, happy relationship with his wife for 26 years. If you think that's a bad thing, I don't get that. Like that part, I'm not talking about you specifically. I don't think that's but you understand a lot of guys do. They have a problem with the fact is like, why are you talking about this when you've been married for 26 years? And my point is that actually, to me, is something I would aspire to. Does that make sense? I have been with women, and I've found one girl that I like, and maybe, hopefully this will work out. If it doesn't work out, I still have other women that I can go talk to, but hopefully this one works out. But in the case of what I'm saying is, I would hope to be able to have that level of connection with one woman. That's why I do listen to him. Does that make sense?
We're talking about two complete separate things right now.
Yeah.
So I was personally talking about an issue I have with this ideology, which is the question you asked me. So again, the big issue I have is that from what I've seen, it very much creates this us versus them mentality. Now, Rollo himself, the guy personally, if you say, hey, he's not actually like that in real life, I'll take you at your word. Maybe he's not. But I'm just going solely off his teachings. I see this with people who used to be fans of Rollo come over to my channel. They're like, yeah, man, I developed a lot of this red pill rage. I thought women were this. And this whole concept, and he harps on this over and over and again, gynocentric female order. These women, they're manipulating men. They have it out, being a man is so hard. It's like, it's probably even harder. Like, it's just like all this weird victim shit that, again, puts men versus women. I think, and for the record, a lot of red pill contributors do that. FNF does that. A bunch of them do that. But I'm not a big fan of this us versus them mentality. I think that does not do guys any favors. In fact, it makes their results with women going to be much worse. I have never once met a guy who was good with women who had an us versus them mentality.
So I think in his case, what he's dealing with are specific feminists when he says us versus them. Like, Icy, who worked, you probably don't know, she works over for Fresh and Fit. She's the girl who like rounds up the girls. She and Rollo are genuine friends. He looks at her like a daughter. They are genuinely friends. This idea that the us versus them mentality, I think what he's describing is a specific group of people. By the way, they're men and women that are attacking traditional masculinity. And so he's saying us as masculine men versus them. But I don't think he means all women. In fact, I know he doesn't mean all women. I know because I do a show with him there's 6 other gorgeous women on there. And when we do it, he is actually, it's really funny because he's doing the opposite. He's the one defending the girls. He's like, dude, you guys don't even know these girls. I had Miss Nevada on my show and these guys are calling them her 304s. Like, Rollo's not doing that. That is not Rollo who's making these guys do that. A lot of these dudes who are angry are coming into this space and they're manifesting this because they feel open to do so. Even on, like, I'm reading some of your comments. Some of the guys are saying ridiculous shit that like has no bearing in reality or whatsoever. None of us are holding them accountable. What I do think is that a lot of the red pill rage comes into this. And your interpretation is that Rollo's making it us versus them. I think it's Rollo is because Rollo criticizes what it's called. He calls them traditional tradcons, traditional conservatives, he heavily criticizes them. So he criticizes both sides of the political aisle. But I think what you're referring to specifically is this like subset of blue-haired feminism that attacks people in the manosphere. That's where he does specifically talk about us versus them. Us versus them is not always unhealthy. Like when it's the Chiefs and the Eagles, there is an us versus them. Right? Sometimes you do need, when you're running Amazon and somebody else and those people over at Meta, there is an us versus them mentality. It's not all, competition is not always incorrect or wrong. I just think what's happened is you've taken interpretation of some of the things he said and extrapolated that to his entire mind. And I've just seen the dude hang out with a bunch of my female friends and they fucking love him. So that's what I've seen that's different.
Yeah. So sometimes people are in one way in real life and then they're totally different on the internet.
Yeah.
And I think part of that could be marketing. But yeah, I mean, like if you just go through his YouTube channel and you look at the titles.
Just hold on. I don't hold him accountable for anything he said in 2013 because he wasn't Rollo back then. This version of Rollo, he wasn't Rollo back then.
Well, unless The Rational Male is by far his most popular book. That is how 95% of people know him. So unless he retracts one of his statements, says, hey, I was wrong about this, then yes, I would hold him accountable. That was 10 years ago. I think that we should be held accountable unless we say, hey, I was wrong about that point, which I've never seen him do. But just going back to my earlier point, if you look at like his YouTube channel, the titles, like a lot of them are just like, yeah, Bimbo learns the truth, blah, blah, blah. He's not as fast, fresh, and fit. But I see that shit all the time.
Oh, you're talking about on his Clips channel?
I'm talking about his Clips channel, his main channel. I just see this all the time. It pops up on my feed.
I'm going to admit something.
Destroyed.
I'm going to admit something. The guys who do my clips, I'm not going to say this is what Rollo's doing, but the guys who do my clips channel, they do the same clickbaity shit. It's just a YouTube thing. You're right. What is the end result? Does it separate us? It does. But I had my clips channel guys. They sit there and posted something like destroys feminists, whatever. Dude, they just do it to get views. I'm like, dude, we're all content creators. I'm not. There's so much good that he's done, and he has actually helped so many dudes that I'm not going to hold him just because he has some, like, you've done things before. I've had hot girls on my cover photo on YouTube. Is that clickbait? Of course it's fucking clickbait, dude. We just do things that are clickbait.
So my issue is not him using clickbait. My issue is him creating an us versus them mentality. You do clickbait too. I do clickbait. Every single YouTuber does clickbait. But what I like about you, from what I've seen, is I don't feel any kind of us versus them mentality. You're not making it like, hey, we're men.
Because I'm surrounded by women all the time. Yeah.
Right. You have a very healthy attitude towards women where it's like, yeah, women are great assets to your life. You know, you got to be careful, blah, blah, but they're great. That's not what I'm getting from Roll. And that's not what a lot of people are getting from Roll. They're getting it's like, yo, here's us, here's women, and we have this like low-key gender war that's going on. And look, I mean, there's a whole bunch of like specific details. I feel like we're having a little bit of a debate by proxy right now because we're both interpreting what he's saying. Maybe he's kind of in the middle. Maybe he agrees with you, or maybe he means something different. But like going back to the debate thing, Rollo about a month ago literally said on his live stream, "I will debate Alex." Like he has said that extremely explicitly.
I'll talk to him about
it. But then like when I tried to actually move things forward, make it happen, I was like, okay, man, let's do. I'm thinking Valley Team, and here are the dates. Just silence, complete ghost mode. And he has been doing that shit for literally like fucking years, man. So I don't think he's ever going to debate me. I think that his ego, even though he probably thinks he's going to win, I think if he loses, his ego won't be able to handle it. So I personally think the odds are really low. But if he actually does debate me, I will say this, even if he's a complete shithead, my respect for him will go up significantly because at least he's putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah. So somebody in the chat said I give strong incel vibes.
Strong incel was?
I'm sorry. Yes, bro. I'm a fucking virgin. I give incel vibes.
I mean, Michael, it would be kind of like, okay, your big thing is social circle, right? And then imagine like you come to Miami, like, yo, Michael, I'm having this party, man. There's gonna be a bunch of girls that you should come, and you're like, whoa, dude, I don't really like talking to girls. Like, I would definitely think less of you because, like, yo, your whole thing.
Yeah, but do you think that's what I do? Like, the guy's calling me an incel, and you're fucking.
No, I don't. I think you're actually quite confident around women. I think you do exactly what you say. I believe you. I'm saying if that was the case, then I would think you're a hypocrite, right? So just like I wouldn't hold you to a debate because you never LARP around about debating, Roll's going to be different. I am going to hold him to that standard because he talked about the importance of debating.
Here's one of the funny things is that I love debate. So when I did the thing with Ruslan, I did about 8 hours of study on Ruslan and his ideas before we went on there because I was a trained debater. I was a mock trial guy, pre-law, and then I was a debate champion. I love debating, but I don't want fake internet beef with people. I just don't. I would love for us to all eat fucking barbecue together. The problem is, so we're all pulling in the same direction. We all want to see the lonely guy, not get fucking manipulated and used by the girl who treats him like shit. Or we all want to see the guy who gets his dick wet, fucking the hottest girl he's ever been, understanding that was fun, have a great time, but she's for the streets. And so don't catch feelings. We all three of us, Rollo, all of us, every one of us is pulling in that same direction. And the acrimony that we have between each other, I think, has a lot to do with testosterone levels and our egos. Now, I'm not saying you specifically, but like I think that's where a lot of it has to do. And then the other problem is, I think there is a lot of ASD that has crept into this community, and I want to help those guys too. But the problem is they see things as, I'm sure you've seen this too, they see things as very binary. Well, you understand, everyone, when Rollo and I did our first interview, they thought it was a debate over whether or not men and women could be friends. It wasn't. It was not like that. It wasn't like that at all. So, I mean, I just think there's just so many places we can explore. I look at this field as a scientific field. I don't care how well my YouTube does. I can't believe I have 45,000 subscribers after like, what, a year, a little over a year. To me, that's incredible. I can't even believe anybody watches my shit. But to me, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love exploring these different areas of how evolution created this incredibly robust Homo sapien male, and to see him just be demasculinized because of society. I have commentary on that. You know what I'm saying? I think you probably feel the same way.
Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, like if I saw Rollo walking down the street, I would have a normal conversation with him. Like it's not like he's like my arch nemesis and like I want to take him down.
Right.
I don't really care that much about him. It's just when the topic comes up, I get my honest thoughts. Like again, my opinion at this point in time is that he's a hypocrite and a little bit of a coward. However, I'm open to changing my mindset if I see him put his money where his mouth is. And look, it doesn't just have to be debate me. If he debates some of the other people, okay, maybe he just fucking hates me, whatever. I'll accept that. But someone like Destiny or someone like that, like. It's just like, dude, you say your whole thing is debating people, but then you run away from every debate. Like, it's kind of really hard for me to respect you at that point. That's kind of why I'm
I haven't heard him specifically say whether or not about the debate part. What I do think is that like he states his ideology on his Sunday show, and that to him is like, this is where I stand, rather than it's like a formal go back and forth debate. That's what I specialize in. I don't know if you've seen my 3.5 hours with flat earthers. Once I did that, I realized I could do anything. Like once you argue with flat earthers for 3.5 hours, you realize you can do anything. So that's I don't know. I'll talk to Rollo right after.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Like again, I'm pretty open to giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like
I have a lot of empathy for his position, because I know his family and I've seen his dogs, and I've been invited into his life as a friend, and through seeing that, I have empathy because of his situation. Now, I'm not saying it's fair or right or wrong. I just have empathy for the situation.
Yeah, no, this is actually my first time hearing about Rollo's family being doxxed. Again, even if I hated the guy, which I don't, I just mildly dislike him. I would never be in favor of that. I think doxing is wrong. But yeah, like again, I think you have to judge people based on their behavior, not just based on like behavior of people they know. Like I have a really good track record of never doxing anyone once in my career on YouTube.
Dude, I really try. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so
I don't know, man. Everybody's getting sued, bro. Everybody's getting sued. I don't even say motherfuckers' names anymore. Everybody's getting sued, bro. Yeah, I don't even say people's names no more, man. I'm afraid.
Yeah, there's quite a few lawsuits going on. And yeah, I also think that's pretty lame. Like I think
we need to have a channel. It's just red pill lawsuits. What if somebody made a channel just called Red Pill Lawsuits? All they did was report on red pill manosphere lawsuits. That's all they did. Every day your manosphere lawsuit update.
I mean, honestly, I call the manosphere the dramasphere.
Well, what's Rich call it? The mana swamp. Rich Cooper calls it the mana swamp. That's funny. Hey, Knight, I do have one question for you. One question I have is, there was a couple of things. So I don't know who what's Alpha Male Strategies, AMS. You made a lot of videos about AMS, right? I don't know anything about him, never heard of him, anything like that. Because I'm not, just to be fair, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him. I just wasn't aware of these. Alex reached out to me and I didn't know who Alex was. I'm not a manosphere guy. I'm a guy who studies evolutionary psychology, who's just kind of being pulled into these conversations. You made some comments about like how Fresh and Fit, when there was a girl talking her shit, they didn't call her out. Dude, regardless of what you think about Myron, nobody calls out women more in the world than Myron Gaines. I was really confused. I was really confused by your video.
That's not what I said. I said Alpha Male Strategies didn't do it. Even his own.
So you're saying Alpha Male Strategies was sitting next to the girl. Okay, my bad, bro. Right. I was confused because Myron was the one talking to her. Now I get it. I was like, Myron Gaines is like, he's the LeBron James. He's the all-time scoring leader for calling out women. So I was like very confused by that. So what is your beef with AMS? I guess I don't understand.
I'm not a big fan of him for a bunch of different reasons. You know, ARC, I don't want to say he plagiarized. I don't want to say he stole his stuff. All I'm saying is he was influenced by ARC in a big way. When ARC passed away, he didn't do any kind of condolences. Mr. Tomasi, he did. Another thing is, I think his terms beta and alpha, I think they're overused, and I think they're dangerous words. You know, here's a good example. Yeah, you got Steve Jobs. When he was at Apple Corporation and he was a little nerd that used to get punked into locker rooms, no one was calling him a beta, right? There's an infamous story where one time Steve Jobs was in an elevator and there was a software engineer, and the software engineer, Steve Jobs asked him, well, what do you do for the corporation to make us money? That type of stuff. The guy couldn't answer the question and he fired him on the spot. So when people hear alpha and beta and all this other stuff, they hear these terms, and there's some guys out there, some young kids, they might not be the fittest guy, they might not have the biggest muscles, but there's some out there that they could meet them and be happy with and develop relationships and dating. So, you know, when you got a guy that's in front of tens of thousands of men in the chat and all these different women are talking bad about men, and he doesn't defend the men in the chat, that's a big problem I would have with, because you're the guy that's supposed to be the alpha, you're the one that's supposed to show the masculine frame, all these different things, and he didn't show anything. So I don't respect.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Knight. I think AMS is completely wrong about a lot of things. One of the things that makes me laugh, he says, when you have a date with a girl, you should confirm, because that is beta. You're just supposed to show up on the date, which is the most insane thing ever. Like, you make plans with some blonde bimbo for
where does that come from?
Sunday, and then you just show up without checking.
Where does that come from, though? It's the binary thinking, Alex. I don't know AMS, but it's when we start. One of the things that happens when we deal with people who have ASD is that things become very black and white, and there's very little nuance. One of the things I bring into my
there needs to be massive nuance. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, all this stuff has nuance.
A lot of these misunderstandings happen because the people in this community don't understand nuance, right? So, you know, Rich and fucking Rollo agree with me. Men and women can be friends. If you have an abundance of women in your life, you can be friends with women. If you don't have an abundance in life, you cannot be friends with women. That's sort of the theory, the agreement that we all kind of came up with. They agree with me, I agree with them. But that's, do you see how much nuance that is? Dudes, literally, they clench their buttholes and gnash their teeth anytime I say that I have female friends. And then they see all the women that get brought to me by my female friends, and they're like, then they start making it like some of the guys in your chat, like, he paid all of them. Once again, $10,000 if you can find one single girl I've ever paid to come to one event. 10 grand, and I'll give you all their IGs. But that's one of the situations that happen, is like they can't deal with that. They can't deal with that ideology because they're so sure that men and women can't be friends, because for them it's a black and white situation. Forget about the fact that Hugh Hefner had female friends, or forget about the fact that Dan Bilzerian has female friends. Forget about that. We just throw that out the window.
Every single guy who is good with girls has some female friends.
Thank you. Fuck. Thank you. Yes. That's my point, bro. And like, it makes them so angry. Not Rollo, not Rich, but the guys watching, they're oh my God, no. They get so angry when you say that. Well, the reason why is because when you start from a lower status, which is where most men are, then they don't understand this concept. If you were friends with the girls, like my girlfriend, she works at a bar, and she's quitting her job. She's moving out here with me to Vegas. She's going to live with me, by the way. And so in that type of situation, every dude, she fully tells me, she's like, yeah, I know every guy who comes in here wants to sleep with me. I am fully aware of that. Which, by the way, if your girl is not telling you that, you might want to pick another girl. If your girl is like, yeah, I'm going on the boat with John, and John's like a brother to me and he would never make a move, go ahead. Your girl already belongs to the streets. Forget that girl. Move on to the next one. But these situations that we have, I forgot my original point. We got off on so many different tangents. I'm so caffeinated here.
I do want to get to closing thoughts. Do you have any more questions about the Rollo thing, Michael?
The Rollo thing? No, man, it's good. Let me just talk to him about it. We'll figure something out. You understand, man? Like, if my role in this whole community, because I talked to Pearl the other day too. If my role in this whole community is to try to get everyone to like work together, not necessarily like each other. If my role in this, if I become the Kofi Annan of the manosphere, then that's fine. If that's how I remember it, then I don't have a problem with that.
Well, look, I'm always open to having conversations with anyone. Anyone is welcome to come on my channel and debate me. I have never once turned down a debate from except one dude who's like a legit crazy lunatic. But if you're at least like semi not crazy, I will have a discussion with you. So yeah, I'm fully on board with that. I think there should be more conversations. I think there should be less. It should be less tribal. I think that I think a lot of these issues will go away if people talk to each other more. Honestly. But yeah, let's do closing thoughts. So let's start off with you, Michael, and just go in clockwise order.
Closing thoughts, man. Hey, listen, what I genuinely want you guys to try to do is, if you want to have discussions in this whole sphere, do so first by reading the Evolution of Desire. Read Why Women Have Sex, When Beautiful People Have More Daughters. Read When Men Behave Badly. Read all these books that discover or expose studies about evolutionary psychology. And what you'll see is the truth is kind of somewhere in the middle. Go into this and try to inform yourself, not based on like your own personal feelings about maybe being hurt by a woman or whatever. Go into it just doing it from an evidence-based standpoint. I would highly recommend all of you. I'll put something on my, if you guys go on my IG, I'll post 6 books that you guys want to read that will help you have more informed conversations on this. Because to me, the only thing I want to do is have an evidence-based conversation about this. I'm not going to say never or only or all. Listen, if you want to marry a single mom, I don't recommend it, and it might work for you, but I also don't hate you if you do it. Does that make sense? I just wanted you to understand, I am truly trying to be a description and not a prescription. I do have one prescription though. Be the most attractive version of yourself you can be, and the science can help you discover what that is too.
Okay. Mike?
I would say the thing that matters the most is to have the most accurate information out there, regardless of where it comes from. Books, personal experience, different sectors of the manosphere. And that's what will help men the most. And that's the main reason I started my channel. My goal is to put the most accurate information out there that helps men, and then they can make their own decisions on what they want to do with that information. And like he was saying, I don't think he was saying earlier, and I agree with it. You know, I don't think marriage should be pushed upon men. I don't necessarily think, all these different things should be pushed upon men. I just think men should get the best information out there. Then they sit there and they make their own decisions for their own life.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I thought this was a really good discussion. I think this is a good example of grown-ass men having an intellectual conversation without arguing, bickering, or any kind of the usual bitch-like behavior you quite often see in the manosphere. So I enjoyed hosting this debate. I think it was a good debate. I think people got a lot of value out of it, and I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. Do you guys also want to tell guys where they can find you?
Yeah, Knight, where can we find you?
I have a YouTube channel. It's called the Knight and the Bishop channel. I'm not too much on other social media platforms. I'm not really worried about them. Twitter, a little bit here and there, but I'm more concerned about the YouTube channel. So, yeah, I'll be uploading a bunch of different videos on a bunch of different topics. I cover the wide spectrum of a bunch of different stuff, and that's just kind of a major part of my personal experiences. It isn't what I want to say. Let me say one thing. I don't want people to ever think that I'm being disingenuous or that I'm over here capping. I don't believe in that. Anything on my channel is what I really believe, and it's part of my learned experiences. And it's just my actual perspective. I'm not telling people what I think they want to hear so I can make a buck. I don't believe in that.
I think you both are very good faith people. Michael, where can people find you?
Can you share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Guys, you can check me out on Michael Sartain on Instagram. Guys, Instagram is the way people imbue status. It's the way people show status, and it's the way people connect now. Pretty soon, is it going to be TikTok? Maybe. It used to be Facebook. Things change over time. Make sure you guys there's a bunch of fake accounts of me, so I just wanted you guys to see mine. You guys come over. You can also check out the Michael Sartain podcast. Watch my interview with Dr. David Buss. Watch my interview with Dan Bilzerian. Watch my interview with a bunch of other people in the space if you guys want to do that. Please come over and check that out. And additionally, if you guys are interested, you guys can also check me out on YouTube at, let me see if this comes up, at the Michael Sartain podcast. Just go to, it's also Michael Sartain right there. And you can see, dude, I just had BJ Baldwin on a little while ago. He shot a dude in the face at 75 feet with a pistol. He got in a gunfight with a dude in a parking lot. Fucking incredible story. There's me with Justin Waller a couple of weeks ago. And I just had Playboy Centerfold, Jesse Preston on. You see RSD Max was on there. I had Miss Nevada on recently. So you guys want to check out the Michael Sartain podcast and all the live streams. I'm doing a live stream with Rollo on the 23rd, where, Alex, we will address everything we talked about here. Rollo and I will definitely talk about everything. It's the show is called Access Vegas. If you guys want to check it out, it is, let me see, Access Vegas right there. You guys can see it. Let me see. Yeah, that's it right there. So you see the ones at Access Vegas, all the girls. We bring 6 girls on the show every week, every other week. So you guys want to check that out, you definitely can. And I forgot who, I think Spencer Cornelia is coming on.
Yeah,
that's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah, so Spencer Cornelius.
He's a really good dude.
Hey, guys, one last thing before I go, because my guys are going to yell at me if I don't do this. Guys, go check out, if you want to learn more, go to moamentoring.com. And you guys can see this is what I teach. If you guys are interested in learning more about my program, it's right there. There are 15, or I think I'm going to say like 50 testimonials of different guys who've had success in my program. We'll also show you like hundreds of more testimonials. There's an F-18 pilot here. This guy broke his neck. This guy is, like I said, a little bit vertically challenged. This guy lives in France. This guy lives in London. This guy lives in New York. And the incredible success that these guys have, we posted up there. And then, afterwards you can, schedule a call if you guys want to learn more.
Nice. Good stuff, man. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I think this was a really good discussion. I'm off to host the BMAC competition. We're going to shoot it tonight. I'll report on the results by early next week. But yeah, we're probably going to be back tomorrow night. So appreciate you guys. Check out the guests, show them support. And until next time, have a good night, everybody.
Hey, appreciate it.
All right, guys.